I call to order the opening of the public hearing. It is Tuesday, July 14th, 2026 at 5:33 p.m. We are at the Jerry Rovey District Facility. Present are Board Member Zimmerman and myself, Board Member Schmidt. Board Member Todd and Board Member Kenyon are virtual, and Board Member Cirancione is absent. Item 1.2, the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Zimmerman, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda item 1.3, hearing to discuss fiscal year 2026-2027 adopted annual school district expenditure budget and truth in taxation. Ms. Anita Purcell, Executive Director of Business Services, presenting.
Thank you. So I'll start by saying good evening, Madam President, governing board members, Superintendent Doozy, our guests, staff, and community members. So tonight we'll be presenting our 26-27 adopted expenditure budget, as well as our truth and taxation hearing. As you all aware, Mr. Kevin Haggerty has been in the interim executive director of operations and has been presented to you the proposed budget last month. So he will be concluding the process with presenting for the adopted budget. But I do look very forward to presenting our revised number 1 in September. So I'd like to introduce Kevin Haggerty.
I see a green light, so I think we're good. Madam President, members of the board, fellow employees, and honored guests, you're going to see a lot of the same things as you saw at the last go-around, but we're going to go through it anyway, only because we have a public hearing. We want to make sure all the material is out there for everybody to see. So tonight you're going to be seeing, again, some of the same material, but I'm also going to talk about some of the legislative things that have happened and things that will impact the budget that Mrs. Purcell is going to present to you in September for a revision. So our normal process, we proposed the budget on June 8th. We had to do it before July 5th, and obviously we met that requirement. And then we put that out as a public hearing notice that has gone into the paper. So we've noticed everything appropriately for tonight. And we are adopting for tonight for adoption is this budget. There are no changes in the budget itself. You are not allowed to make a change between proposed and adopt to increase it, even if there's legislative action, unless you re-propose and adopt again. So to that end, we're just going to go ahead and adopt what you had seen and approved as the proposed, and talk about changes that you're going to see going forward. Now, the notable changes that we have from the prior year to the current year, our M&O base went up 2%, and that's going to generate another $631,000 to us. The related override increase that we receive should give us about another $105,000. And we are projecting a weighted ADM, average daily membership growth, of 58, so another $300,000 from that. And when we do the revised number 1, you will have an opportunity to see where we really land initially. Obviously, they're not going to be final numbers with our ADM, but we'll see some changes. And we're really hoping to see some solid numbers based upon the growth that we're seeing out in the area, in the community. Now, the next area is what I told you that was not legislative acted on at that time. So we assumed this money was not coming in. Well, they came back and said the one-time money that was one time 2 years ago, was one time last year, is going to be one time next year, is there. That's a pretty substantial sum of money, and we're looking forward to plugging that into the budget. And hopefully we're going to see this as ongoing, because it does look like these sums are going to be rolled into the base budget for 27-28. So it takes the worry out of wondering where the money's going to come from. And again, these changes will be noted in the revised budget. Now that we prepared the proposed and adopted on the original forms from the Auditor General, and those were before they were finalized, but again, because legislature wasn't done with their business. So the forms you're going to see with these revisions in it are going to be the final prepared forms from the Auditor General. Okay, now in the capital budget, we are now talking about a $350,000 increase in the carry forward. However, that's not going to be the real number over because we have readopted our annual financial report with some reallocations from 24, picked up $123,000 in this fund. We're expecting to do the same thing. And then again, this is the allocation of interest between the capital fund and the M&O fund. And we expect to generate similar numbers over for 25. You're going to have coming back to you a revised 25 with those reallocations. And then you're also going to see some extra money coming in and the carryover based on changes that we're going to make and that reallocation for 25, 26. So we expect that carry forward to basically not be a drop, but it should be pretty flat. So, and then the district additional assistance shows a very slight decrease because that is done based upon an unweighted average daily membership. Weighted, we go up. Unweighted, we actually have a slight decrease. Now, here is the same form you had seen before, but I highlighted for you the one-time supplements showing that decrease. The reality of it is that's coming back to us. It's not going to be exact, this number, because they allocated a hard dollar amount that gets spread out based upon the student enrollment at every LEA. So every LEA will get their portion based upon the number of students that they're servicing. So our numbers will be close, but they are going to look a little different. And the Classroom Site Fund. And we really like this one because it generates some good money and it has been very healthy over the years. But it is funded by a 0.6% tax rate in our sales taxes, plus supplemented from the State Land Trust. What that means is that this next year we're going to be going up from 842 to 883 for next year, and that'll generate about $200,000 for us. So that net allocation annually runs about 4.4 million. Now I have interest that we earn in this fund. Last time I told you, and this is where you see a strikeout, it was 130,000 as of May. Well, as of June, it looks like it's closer to 151,000. We get that in there. So anytime there's good news, I have no problem changing the board agenda to give you a little extra good news. So extra 20,000 in there and we'll take it. Now, as a reminder, this fund is also, we're funding 100% of the teacher increase for next year out of this fund. And it's still a very, very healthy fund. Now we're going to talk about the truth in taxation a little bit. This is excuse me. Sorry, at the end of the day, my voice does get a little hoarse. We are asking for adjacent ways funds, and we do a truth in taxation hearing because this is required by law, but it also, the law itself says any money you tax for this is called a tax increase, even though if it lowers the rate, which is, you'll see that this is what is actually going to happen. So it's a primary levy, voted on only by this governing board, and it is used for offsite utilities, ingress, egress, fire lanes, things of that nature. So you have bus lanes that are a part of this also. So you can fund any of those out of this fund. Now, as we look at our projects going forward, I talked to Mr. Young. He said 2 million ought to be a good number for this year, and we should have some carryover based upon what he sees coming up in the near future. Again, this supplements a lot of our projects and pays for those incidentals. The Truth in Taxation notice was published in the newspaper on July 1st. Now, this is where I'm going to show you, even though we're calling this a tax increase, when you compare, we took 2 million into 25, 26, the same 2 million is actually going to be less dollars. And that's because our tax base increased by 11%. Now, existing properties cannot go up more than 5%. Our overall base went up 11%, which means the other 6% was from additional properties. That means we're spreading our tax burden out over a bigger base, which lowers the rate for everything else. Kind of nice to have. But we still call it a tax increase, even though we can see here that is actually a decrease overall from what we had in the prior year. So we're also going to talk about a little bit about the primary and secondary tax rates. The primary tax rates are what we're estimating, again, point in time, and then we're expecting that to go down again, primarily based upon our increase in our tax base. That helps us a lot. But what we don't have are some of the data that the county folks are going to be providing for us when we actually set the tax rate for real. And when I say we, I mean Mrs. Purcell, because this is going to be hers. But the bottom line is we don't have all the data, so we base it on what we know at a point in time. Things like default rates and things like that are not baked into these numbers. So these are raw numbers. They will change when that happens. And the same is true of the secondary tax rate. And the secondary tax rate is made up of those items that our taxpayers vote on, bonds and overrides. So we also see a decrease here as the same for the same reasons. And with that, stand for questions as part of the public hearing.
All right, thank you. Do we have questions from board members?
Ms. Schmidt.
Please go ahead.
Okay. When you talked about the one-time funds, you said that you thought in 27, 28 that they would possibly become like permanent part of the base funding. So did something happen in the legislature, that makes you say that, or?
Yes.
Okay. Can
Yes.
you tell us?
It's interesting. They call them one time when they put this together, but the way they wrote the bill, it looks like it rolls into the general fund. So confirmation of that, I don't have that yet, but when you read the material itself and the interpretation that I've gotten from some of the attorneys that reviewed this, it looks like it's just going to roll into the base. But we still, because it's still called one-time money next year, we're still calling it one-time money.
Sure. But the bill that was passed with the budget, is that what you mean when you say a bill was passed?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Part of the
Yes.
budget.
It was what the omnibus reconciliation bill, the ORB, was that's how that was laid out.
Okay. And then it's the next thing is more of just a comment, because when we talk about, I know we cannot change anything from the adopted to the, the proposed to the adopted.
Yes.
But just when we get to the revision, the board was able to finally get the SPED staffing, and it is going to increase by 1.5. And so I just think it'll be important that we incorporate that into the revision because, again, whether that's a teacher or a parapro, I didn't compare exactly all the numbers, but it still impacts it. And I think it's always so nice that we, really reflect the FTE, the actual FTEs, so that we're able to compare year over year, especially like transparency for our public, because in the past, what we ran into is that number was essentially a guess is what the board was told. And I was like, because we cut all these positions, not this past year, but the previous year. And then it wasn't reflected when we looked at the FTEs on it. And I was confused as a board member. And so I just think it's important that when we either, show the public, we're adding teachers, or if we have to make a budget reduction, that they're able to clearly see that we're, being accurate with our funds. So, that was just, because again, I know we can't change the budget right now.
And if I may, that is a very good comment. And I tell everybody when you're dealing with budgets, they're living, breathing documents. You cannot set a budget day one and expect to hold for the entire year. Things happen during the year, and having a document that allows you to make those changes is really important. So it's not set in stone, but it is a guideline to drive us through the year. So I agree with what you're saying. Those changes as they occur. We end up with extra kids. We may have to hire extra teachers. There's other things that could happen that are going to affect this going forward. So you will get those. And I was remiss in not talking about budget balance carry forwards overall, even though we're not talking about the prior year, we are talking about the future year. But we carried over in our M&O fund $641,000 from 24-25 into 25-26. Right now we're projecting over 800,000 rolling into the 26-27 year. So that shows, I believe, that the fiscal responsibility that's been exhibited here by the board and by the staff really reining in some of the expenses and seeing those that carry forward. And the other one that's got a very large balance in it is the Classroom Site Fund. I talked about that a little bit, but there's about $4.5 million we're projecting right now that's going to be rolling forward from that fund. That gives you opportunities and flexibilities going forward as you look to how you want to structure salary schedule. This only is for teachers and staff that are instruction support. So you have to be very careful how those are done. But at the same time, knowing that that's there and available can help in the calculus as you move forward. The only other one I'd really talk about is the indirect cost fund. That's one we lean on. 460,000 we're projecting right now to carry forward in that fund. So that's a good fund also. It's got a lot of flexibility to it. And lastly, the gifts and donations, because we get the rooftop donations. Those are always nice. So that's 400,000 in the rooftop donations and 200,000 in our regular donated funds. We call those platinum dollars because they're super flexible and they support in a lot of ways without as many restrictions as some of the other funds.
Can I ask a question about that? So the rooftop donations go in the gifts and donations fund, because I thought it had a more specific fund. I feel like we've
These roll to, the answer is yes, you are right. If you look on your report, the monthly report that breaks out all the different funds, you will see there's a fund number 539. But it also rolls together for reporting under 530. All of the 530 through 539 roll together as a one fund. Those are all gifts and donations. But we do separate under 530 the regular gifts and donations versus the 539, which are the rooftop donations.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other questions from board members?
Ms. President,
Yes, please.
I just have a question. Sorry, I'm a remote and I'm having a few technical difficulties, but just for the record, I'm trying to find out in the budget, what is the planned, we asked this question before, I'm not sure we got it answered publicly. What's the carryover going to be for this year as compared to what the board resolution is asking for to happen within 2 years for carryover?
Yes, we carried over into 25, 26, 641,000 in the general fund. We're projecting it to be between 800 and 900,000 this year based upon where we are at a point in time. There's a lot of encumbrances that are out there that we think are going to fall away because we didn't really do those activities. So we're in a 60-day encumbrance cycle that all those happen. Either they're paid or they drop to the bottom line. And based on what we're seeing right now, that's going to be going up to between $800 and $900,000. That's on the general fund. So,
Okay.
So we're making progress toward that goal. But you may recall at that last meeting, we also spoke about that may not be the best tactical maneuver. There's a better strategic way to utilize those funds where when you have cash balances in these other funds as carry forward, you can still call them carry forward, but you earn interest that you can then spend. You cannot spend this money in the M&O fund that you earn interest on. You can, it just sits there. They call it dead cash.
All right, I understand that. I just want to make sure we have a resolution. And so we need to come up with how much for the next year in order to accomplish what our resolution was.
Well, right now you're going to be sitting about $1.1 million short from that resolution. What I'm suggesting is revisiting that resolution and being a little more strategic in how that reserve is planned in different funds that are able to utilize those interest earnings.
Right, I understand that, but currently the board has not agendized that to reconsider it. And I appreciate you saying that we have 641,000. We think it's going to go to 800, 900,000. But to be quite honest, every time we think something, we seem to think wrong. And I don't mean that directed at you. I mean, as a whole, we think numbers are going to go up, they go down. We think growth is coming to the area. Growth doesn't happen quite as fast as we like. We think we're getting more students and a charter school pops up across the street. So I always do this to a salesperson who goes out and buys a boat before they've cashed that commission check. And man, until that thing's in the hand and cleared the bank, it's risky to do that. So currently, I'm looking at, you're pretty solid with 641,000. You're hoping that goes to 800,000, but that's going to leave the district as it is right now as the guarantee take to the bank about $1.5 million short for next year that they're going to have to make a cut on. If all the stars don't line up properly and we get everything. Secondarily, we may see the one-time funding, although we think it's staying. And I do agree with your assessment. It seems like every time the folks down at the Capitol add something, they take something away. So I think we need to look at the carryover and get that closer to $1 million this year, so we have an easier burden for next year. Until such time that we reconsider. But again, to say we're going to reconsider, if the board votes it down, if it doesn't happen, we currently have to march to the orders of what we have. It's kind of like driving 55 on the freeway when you know tomorrow the speed limit's going to be 65. So like, well, just do 75 because that'll be within 10. It's not. It's 20 today. So it's I think this is a slippery slope that could really catch us at some point.
Yes. Yeah, and I think your words of caution are definitely in line with the fiscal responsibility of this board. But I would also offer that there are reserves that exceed that 2 million when you look at some of these funds, which is why I kind of laid out those balances that are expected to carry forward in other ones. And I think strategically, as you revisit that, you'll look for ways to maintain a balance that's going to make you comfortable and make your resolution, though, in a manner that will give us more opportunities to keep that interest that does get earned.
Good.
Ms. Schmidt.
Go ahead.
I just want to, I pulled up the motion from the date that we did this. I just want to be clear, one, it's not a resolution. It was a motion that the board took action on. And it doesn't specify that the carry forward is an M&O. And, you know, Mr. Haggerty, I appreciate, you know, the education that you have provided me. I only speak for myself because I didn't realize all the different complexities, and I don't feel like I've been on the board over 18 months and it hasn't been explained to me. So I think, you know, it would be very smart of us to relook at it, but it also, this motion says that it's the end of the fiscal year of 28. So really we have 2 more years because this is the end of fiscal year 26. So I just wanted to pull that in for the record. It was done on October 27th, 2025.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right. We can move on to 1.4, call to the public for the hearing of the annual school district expenditure budget. Ms. Camerata, do we have any signups for public comment? We do not have any public comments. So at that, we can go to item 2.1 and adjourn the public hearing. And move on to 3.1. Oh, thank you. The time, yes, we are adjourning the public hearing at 5:56 p.m. And moving to 3.1, calling to order the regular meeting, also at 5:56 p.m. We have Board Member Zimmerman and Board Member Schmidt in attendance. Board Member Kenyon and Board Member Todd are virtual, and Board Member Cirincione is absent. Agenda item 3.2, approve regular agenda.
I make a motion to approve the regular agenda form consistent with Board Policy 1-302 and temporarily suspend governing board policy with which this agenda may be inconsistent.
All right, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a
Second.
Thank you. We have a second. And we can take a vote. Board Member Todd.
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon.
Aye.
Board Member Zimmerman.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We'll show that passed 4-0.
President Schmidt,
Yes, sorry.
excuse me, and fellow board members, just for the record, the second motion was from Board Member Michael Todd.
No, it's from Kenyon.
Who's Kenyon?
Thank you.
All right. Agenda item 4.1, governing board update. Board Member Todd, do you have an update?
Sorry, it's taking just a second to unmute it. No, I don't have one. I'm sorry I wasn't there tonight. I was trying to make it, but we're at the Arizona Fire Chiefs Conference and it's been a busy day. I just couldn't make it there, so my apologies. But otherwise, I hope everybody's having a good summer and looking forward to the school year starting.
Board Member Kenyon.
No update at this time.
All right. Board Member Zimmerman.
Yes, thank you. I just have one thing. I just want to officially welcome Dr. Ducey to the superintendent position officially, joining us at the dais. It is, I think, a really exciting time for our district. And I've just been very impressed already with the amount of information that the board is getting and the thorough information. Just so much that we have had to kind of ask for, we're just being given. And I just think it already shows what an asset you'll be. And I know everybody's excited and I'm excited. So officially welcome.
Thank you.
And I am going to piggyback off of that and also say welcome officially, and also Mrs. Purcell, welcome officially. We're happy to have you on board as well. It hasn't been very long yet, but working with everybody in the district has been great, and we're moving forward on so many things. So super happy to see that. We're looking forward to a great start of the school year in just a couple of weeks, which is sort of crazy to even think about that it's happening so quickly, but it is almost here. And yeah, I think we're all ready and we're excited. So welcome to both of you. And I know next time we're going to have even more new people to welcome. So looking forward to that as well.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 5.1, the superintendent update. Dr. Ducey.
Good evening, Madam President, governing board members, our guests here, and community. I am privileged to be here and to serve the Liberty School District as your superintendent. So I do have a few things I'd like to update you on. First, I have been exploring past requests from board members for things that they would like action on and updates on. And one of those things was called, I might be pronouncing it wrong, but it's the MAKISA from the Maricopa County Superintendent. It's a leadership, administration, and principal coaching program. And I'm excited to say that we have met with MAKISA and we have been part of a grant through TCL. And we will find out in September if we have successfully achieved that grant. It's really exciting because it's going to offer some really good options and a whole menu of things that we can pick from to help support our leaders with their own professional growth and development. We also, this week, the last few weeks, we have met with Buckeye Union High School assistant superintendents to engage in collaboration. One of those things is that our students can successfully get an Algebra 1 credit, this is a great opportunity as that this also was just passed as a law, that schools provide this opportunity for our students. We also are working with them to provide coding. They have some really great programs at Buckeye High School, and they're going to partner with us to really get some of that, that STEM and that coding in our kids' hands. So that's really exciting to see that work. Our Ed Services Department has been collaborating with them for the last week or so, and we're going to be doing some tours of their facility and find out how we can best partner. We also held our first admin cabinet meeting with the members we do have on board so far. We are able to utilize the governing board's strategic priorities and goals to focus on our work, set up our agenda so they're aligned to those goals that the governing board adopted in 2024, and track these goals and action steps and monitor our progress. So it was a great first meeting, and I feel that we really started strong with a very focused and intentional agenda to really capture our work and get things done. And then I also facilitated and participated in both the leader panel and the stakeholder panel to interview for our next executive director of human resources. Happy to say that we're going to be bringing this recommendation next Tuesday, which is one of the reasons why I asked the board to convene, is we want to bring some staff to recommend for employment. So we'll be bringing that candidate to the next board meeting. And this will complete our admin cabinet, which is really exciting that we will have a complete admin cabinet to get work done here for Liberty and service our kids. I do want to just take a moment and thank the board for allowing me to serve as a consultant prior to July 1st. This time really allowed me to set a positive trajectory for our district and most importantly, our students. So it's been a great opportunity, and we are now hitting the ground running and getting things accomplished. I also participated in the leadership panel for the assistant principal at Blue Horizon. We'll be bringing our recommendation for the board to approve at our July 21st meeting. So that's exciting. We'll be staffed in that position. And then, as you know, we announced to the community and to the board, as well as our staff, Principal Valdez resigned his principalship position at Blue Horizon. We'll be bringing that to the board on July 21st, but we do want to wish him well. And I did want to just give the community an update that we have that position posted, and we are doing our best to get that position filled with the best candidate so that Blue Horizon has a successful school opening. As a first-year superintendent in Arizona, I was invited with an opportunity to participate in a fully sponsored superintendent collaborative network. We had our first meeting this week. It was a great opportunity for me to to meet about 30 other new superintendents in the state of Arizona, as well as superintendents that are highly experienced, as well as having my own mentor to really help guide and shape this experience in my first year. And then next week, we'll kick off our Liberty Leadership Council. This council is composed of our site and district and operational leaders. The purpose of this council is to collaborate across our educational operational departments so that we truly do work as an entire team, and this team will meet monthly. This week, we also started our Connecting Liberty Leaders, which is called the No Share Act. And this is going to be an important communication tool for all of our leaders, where we will provide what things they need to know each week, things they need to share each week with their staff, and things they need to act upon. These No Share Acts will go out every Thursday morning. On Friday this week, I'm really excited to announce that we're kicking off our District Guiding Coalition. This is a team that's composed of the voices of our Educational Services Department, every department across serving our kids. This purpose of this team is to remove the silos and build collaboration across all the many roles that serve our district. It also it's a model that corporations and school systems use to build ownership for continuous improvement and build leadership capacity and decision making. And we do have the opportunity to have an expert in this work come and spend the day with us to help us kick off and get started on our journey as a district guiding coalition. And then lastly, this week we kicked off our first LIGHT meeting, and what that stands for is Liberty's Instructional Growth and High Impact Team. This composed of principals, assistant principals, and it will also be composed of instructional coaches. They haven't quite come back yet, but they will be part of this team, and our whole Ed Services department. This group is literally the light that will lead our way to reaching the governing board's strategic priorities and goals. I did want to share board members here with me tonight virtually, and I know that one of our members couldn't be here tonight, but I do want to let you know that you are also part of this light. As a symbol of our next steps of collaboration, I have given you a little gift there on the in front of you, and it's a flashlight. And this is the symbol of our next steps of collaboration, to use our lights to shine bright, to make Liberty the destination district for students, for families, and for staff. You are vital, governing board members, to our pursuit of organizational success and all students learning at high levels. And so please accept my light to you tonight as a symbol that we all carry this responsibility. And I look forward to shining brightly alongside of all of you for our students, our staff, our families, and community. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Doozy, for the update. Item 5.2, the monthly budget report for June 2026. Do we have any questions? Do you want to present, Ms. Purcell? Do you have comments?
Yes.
Okay.
Again, thank you.
Go for it.
President, can you hear me? Yes. I was able to get a chance to review this report, and I did make some minor changes. I had moved our fund, I believe 610 and 620 from the cash section below to budget driven. Those two funds are on our budget driven. They are on our approved adopted budget. Of course, this is for last year for the ending June 30th. Also, I was able to update our project momentum. I know in the previous year was a larger balance, and I was able to go back from the beginning of the grant and catch it up. What I'm trying to say is I did a little bit of edits. So these are pretty accurate, and I look forward to maybe making it not so much detail, if that's something, or do you guys like to see the detail for the 61 each section?
I kind of like the detail, but you know, I think we have felt the need for all the detail right now, and so I think at least in the beginning it would be nice to still have the detail. And I think it just, as a board member, helps me continue to learn, about the different categories and where things fall into. So, can I ask a question? Okay. So, I was excited to hear Mr. Haggerty say that, you think that the carry forward is going to be closer to 800,000, but here the balance still says 400,000. And is that because you've left the encumbrances as they kind of were, and then those will just fall off if we don't use them? Is that why it still says that?
Yeah, as of June 30th, that was the amount. So even in the last 2 weeks, we've closed POs, and I looked at it briefly. It was almost getting close to 650, and we're still in the process of paying invoices. I plan to pretty much audit every line in last year. I haven't got a chance to, but that's my plan, to make sure codes, strategically planning expenses, either capital, bond. There may be some stuff like coding an air conditioner to move it to our capital fund or our building renewal fund. And that's something, from just saying years of experience, I'm able to look at lines, descriptions, and I'm like, okay, and just start, strategically planning, like, should it be in our bond? We should use our bond fund because that's, ends in December as it qualifies. So I've looked at all that. I wish I could have brought my bond update because I know that's been a question, but that's coming as well soon. But yeah, that number's going to change, but we want to be conservative and say maybe 800,000, but there's potential there because I just haven't had a chance to totally go through it, but I will. I'm planning to do that. So I'll have a good number for you, but
Okay. Thank you so much.
Any other questions about the budget report? Okay, thank you. Agenda item 6.1, guidelines for public comment. Ms. Camerata, did we have any public comment for the meeting?
We do not.
No public comment. Moving on to 7.1, approval of consent agenda.
Ms. Schmidt, I'd like to pull 7.2 and 7.8.
Madam President, I'd like to pull 7.5.
Okay, I have to pull 7.2, 7.5, and 7.8. So if we could get a motion.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 7.2, 7.5, and 7.8.
Madam President, I'm sorry, I thought she said 7. Oh yeah, 7.2 is that's the personnel action item, right?
Correct.
Okay, my apologies. Couldn't read my scribble. We're good.
Okay, so still 7.2, 7.5, and 7.8.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion. Do we have a
I'll
second?
second
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right, we've got multiple seconds. Chris, put it first. All right, we have a motion and a second by Mr. Kenyon. We'll take the vote. Mr. Todd,
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon,
Aye.
Ms. Zimmerman.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We'll show that passed 4-0. And we can,
President Schmidt, if I may,
yes,
just to make sure we're consistent, it was actually Board Member Todd that seconded that motion, not me.
sorry, I thought I heard you. I
That's
thought I
okay.
heard you first, but we will correct the notes for that. Thank you. All right. 7.2, approval of personnel action items. This is Dr. Avila, interim superintendent of human resources. Ms. Zimmerman, you had a question?
Yes. Sorry. I'm just finding it. Okay, so under supplemental compensation, we're making a June classroom site fund payment to an employee that we already paid in June, like last June, we did all the other classroom site funds. So why are we making an additional payment here?
The full amount was not paid out, so this is the total amount that should have been paid out.
Okay, and last time we discussed when there was a question, because there was a partial payment, that because that employee was not in the classroom for the full year, it was prorated. So has that decision then changed?
Yes, correct. After reviewing all of the information, specifically the district doesn't have a board-approved performance plan that it was in place for last school year. As well, there was no documentation supporting the decision to reduce the employee's 301 payment, and therefore, without a board-approved policy, without any standards for determining eligibility, paying the full amount is consistent with equitable treatment.
I don't have any other questions for this agenda item.
Mr. Todd, did you have a question for this agenda item?
I did. As I'm reading this, it looks like we did a $500 contract signing stipend or bonus, whatever we want to call it, for our district, some district office staff. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So my question to this is, it doesn't look like we took care of our hourly employees at all. And I've raised this question before, but I guess to put it bluntly, when are we going to start respecting our hourly employees and treating them well? Every year, every single year, administration seems to come forward and leave those folks out. And I would have thought with the transition time and $20,000, and first of all, that $20,000 would have helped a lot of this stipend. I'm still extremely frustrated over that, but we left some people out, and I don't think it's fair. I think the board needs to take some immediate action to figure out how to get that resolved and fixed. Our hourly employees have just, every year we tell them, next year, we got you next year. We got your back. It's your way, way, way back, but we got it. And it needs to change. And it's just frustrating that this can come forward here and we continue to go down this road. So, we can do it now, we can do it later, but I'm asked that this topic be looked at this year, immediately, that we recognize our hourly employees a little differently than what we've appear to have done with this.
Ms. Schmidt.
Yes, please go ahead.
So, this is a new thing that we did, and this was part of the contract language that the board approved. So I think, if that is something that board members were interested in, and it should have come up during the contract language time, because we approved all the contract language and this was added to the contract language for these employees. Whether it's right or wrong, that's the time to address this. So
Well,
it's not a surprise. It's not like they're adding it randomly. This was part of their contract that the board approved the contract language. Nobody's adding it randomly.
I never once said anybody was adding it randomly. So thank you for putting words in my mouth that didn't exist, but I didn't say that. I just said we need to do better by our hourly employees. And those were all pushed at the last possible second. There were tons of them. It was missed. As I said, I'm just going to ask the board for an agenda item that we look at this and we address it immediately so that we can take care of these folks properly. That's all I said. Thank you, Ms. Zimmerman.
Thank you. Any other comments about this agenda item? Okay, do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve 7.2.
Great, we have a motion to approve 7.2. Do we have a second?
I will second it.
Thank you, Mr. Kenyon. We have a motion and a second. We'll take a vote. Mr. Todd? You're muted if you're trying to vote. Okay. Mr. Todd? Okay, we'll try and come back. Mr. Kenyon?
Aye.
Ms. Zimmerman?
Nay.
I am an aye. Mr. Todd, are you back?
Sorry, my computer's muting and it couldn't get it unmuted. This is a tough one because we've agreed to this with some, we have not agreed to this for the hourly employees. We have to move forward with what we've agreed upon, but I will be bringing it back. I'll vote aye, but I need to stipulate that we're going to need to talk about fixing this for our hourly employees.
Okay, thank you. We'll show that passed 3-1. Moving on to 7.5. Fiscal year 2027 sole source determinations. Ms. Purcell, and the question came from Mr. Todd.
Yeah, I'm sorry. On 7.5, we have listed ASBA as a sole source. I don't think we need to call them out as a sole source. Actually, the trust is doing training now as well. They provide training. They're providing more training. I don't think that they are a sole source any longer for the training. If we're just talking about some sort of a membership sticker, the trust provides the same membership. So I don't think that they meet the requirements any longer of a sole source.
Respond.
Yeah,
Okay,
please go ahead.
comment. That's something I can look into because that is something new. The trust recently has changed, and I think in the history, it's been sole source. So that's something I'll look into to make sure it's like apples, and if it is or not. Many districts, I'm sure. I can look into it. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
Ms. Schmidt.
Yes, go ahead.
I think that, the overarching, I kind of honestly wondered about the sole source thing too. Like, why don't we just do the procurement? Because I think, based on the information that the board has been given, at least for this year, we need to belong to ASBA for the healthcare discount. Like, we've already given healthcare to our employees. We can't change that. And so, I appreciate that Dr. Doozy has said, we can certainly look at this for next year. We can bid it out. So I guess the question is, are we okay moving forward without the sole source and doing a procurement process just so that we can move this membership along and our healthcare for our employees does not become in jeopardy is where I'm at here, because this was to us in June and now it's again in July.
I would have to look if they were under any co-ops. If not, you're right. We'll have to get 3 quotes and do the whole process that way. Or and that's something we can look into pretty quickly with our purchasing person to look into that. So that's something you guys are requesting, not to do source, take it back as 3 quotes and move forward, because that would be the next procurement step.
I mean, I'm okay doing a sole source, but if the board is
Right.
not under agreement, I am just concerned that, like, is there some sort of time frame that we need to meet with ASBA to kind of be able to fulfill that PO so that our insurance, there aren't any problems with our insurance for our employees?
That's already started July 1, right? Yeah, that's already, we're behind, so.
Yeah,
Go ahead, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
that's okay. Madam President, board members, I'll just add a little commentary to this topic, just because we have reached out to the trust, we have reached out to ASBA and ASBATE, and as Anita Purcell mentioned, that we can still do more research. ASBA did change their pricing, and that was provided to the interim superintendent probably a couple months ago, and that was not forwarded at the time. And so we didn't have that information until after July 1st. The board did approve, have a presentation on April 13th from Gallagher, right? Gallagher around our medical insurance, our dental, all that. And then on April 27th, the board approved that medical plan without probably knowing. When you approve that medical plan, you approved ASBA because you approved the plan prices under the ASBA agreement for discounts. So the pricing for ASBA right now is an all or nothing. They don't have where you can parse it out like you used to be able to. Now it's one membership fee, and it provides everything that they have for that one fee. And right now, what we are dependent on them is our in medical insurance. Diligence can be something that Trust now provides discounts on, which are very similar to ASBA. We can also, we use Trust for our policies. So definitely in the future forward, we definitely can, if that's what the board wants, is we can definitely move away from ASBA. But right now, because we did approve the medical benefits as presented, in a way, you already accepted ASBA as a sole source because you're saying that we're using them and only them to access that discount. And we can always bring back the sole source, but I don't know. I think we're going to be at the same place we are right now, but that's what I like to share with the board to inform you so you can make the decision you feel is best.
Madam President, if I may.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you for that, Dr. Doozy. The last meeting, I had pulled this out of the sole source agenda item because I wanted to make sure that we did look at speaking with the trust. And one of my questions was, are we able, and I don't know if the trust has given you this information yet or it's still what you're waiting on, is the trust able to give us discounts as well, similar to what ASBA has given us for the medical benefits, for the healthcare benefits? And so I appreciate you reaching out to them. I just wanted to make sure that was included in those conversations. I agree. We don't want to tamper with the current healthcare benefits that we agreed to. So with that being said, I'm okay moving forward on this agenda item. However, with the understanding that administration is still going to look into what we can do to move away from ASBA, what the options are. And as the board has shown a lot of kind of direction and moving more towards the trust policies and the trust itself, what benefits can we get from that? So that's kind of where I was going with this, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Board
Madam-
Member Kenyon. And that's absolutely our intention, is bring back to the board your recommendation that you vote for us to go out for the proper bidding process to look at different insurance. And at that time, we can definitely look at what our options are with any type of trust discount. I don't have that information tonight as far as how they might be connected to insurance companies and discounts, but we can definitely make that all part of the examination of what we should do next.
Madam President,
Yes, go ahead.
I think Dr. Doozy kind of hit it on the head that when this was presented to the board for the insurance, it wasn't real clear that that was tied to membership. So if that's the case, and we essentially voted to be members at that point, we might have had an open meeting law violation because we didn't agendize that. Secondly, I think this continues to just show why the Arizona School Board Association is probably one of the least trustworthy organizations in the state, especially in education, because they play games like this. They continuously play games. Also, we now have policy services. If this goes through, we have policy services from the trust, and we have policy services from the school district or from the School Board Association. which puts us potentially in a conflict because with that, we could get different policy language, different advice, and we're going to have a problem. So I think that this is yet again another very shady move by the School Board Association. They rank right up there in just a filthy, dirty organization, and I think we've got some problems that need to be there. I understand certainly about the benefits, but this is I think a larger problem for us now. That as I don't think any of us understood that we were going to have to remain members. I don't see anywhere in their presentation that made that clear, and I think Dr. Ducey summed it up herself when she said, "You may not realize it, but you voted to be members of the organization at that time." Because there are other organizations out there that do this now, I don't know that that gives us reason to just say, well, we got to keep the benefits, so we're going to have to, we're just going to violate some potential procurement laws on sole sourcing and do it because we got tricked by School Board Association. So I would suggest that we get some legal counsel on this very quickly to the whole board, so the board can ask questions. I kind of don't like some of the filtering that's going on and the use of certain attorneys, but I think we need to look at this and probably even talk to the Auditor General's office. As you all know, we're under another investigation by them for some things. So I think we better start reaching out to some folks and figuring out how we best address this, and taking any action could be detrimental. I think we're maybe in a catch-22.
Ms. Schmidt.
Yes, please go ahead.
I'm not concerned about us, essentially having two policies, because the only people that can approve policy is the school board. And so I don't think our school board would try to enact two policies from two different groups. I think it's very clear that we went to the trust. And so with that, I make a motion to approve 7.5.
All right, I'll second. Excuse me. So we have a motion and a second. We'll take a vote. Mr. Todd,
Nay.
Mr. Kenyon,
Nay.
Ms. Zimmerman.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. Will show that that did not pass. It was tied 2-2. Moving on to item 7.8, approval ratification of expense vouchers 2649, 2650, 2651, 2652 in the amount of $1,785,066.96. Ms. Zimmerman, you had a question about this?
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. If we could pull up voucher 2649, and if you could go to page 2, please. I'm looking at PO 261-200 for Alexis Wilson Consulting for $4,700. Human Resources Consulting. I would like to know how many hours this payment accounts for.
Do you want to speak on it, or? Okay, I'm sorry. We're like a dual team, right? It's an HR. She's here. So my information is from our system, our vision system, right? To get the most recent data. The payment, is this one right? The 5-4. Okay. Data service is listed for 8 days, 19.25 hours.
Okay, so 19.25 hours for $4,700. If you work that math out, that's $244 an hour. at the last meeting on June 8th, we also had a different HR consulting voucher come through for $5,412 for 32 hours, which is $194 an hour. I'm just curious if, because they're both HR consulting, did we procure that? Because those two amounts together are over $10,000. And that would be like services because it's HR consulting.
Yeah, I think information, Dr. Avila might have more information on that.
Okay.
Are you aware?
Madam President, members of the board, so we did have, there are different quotes and they did meet their procurement requirements when they had issued the POs. In the process, they did receive the quotes. So one of the consultants has been with Liberty for more than 1 year. The Alexis Wilson is this year, the PO that was issued was $9,300. Also, in addition, what you're not seeing is in addition to the hours worked, there's also travel costs. So the hourly rate is not as high as you reported. So just for clarification.
Okay, so how much is, so we're paying a consultant to travel here?
Yes, there's some, for mileage.
Okay, so we're paying them mileage. So approximately how much of that $4,700 is mileage?
$800.
Okay, so we're talking about $202 an hour. You know, the reason that I'm bringing this up is because I think that there are certain board members that have a double standard with what consulting contracts we're looking at. And so that is my concern here, is that we're okay. Neither of these HR consulting contracts ever came to the board. We're paying an interim HR director at the time, and we've hired 2 consultants for over $10,000. So I'm just bringing this for transparency because there's a lot of conversation about consulting contracts, and this one seems very, very high to me. I'd also like to pull voucher 2652. And we could go to page 2. At the bottom, it's kind of 2 and 3. And if you, oh, sorry, it's on the screen. This is Dr. Doozy's consulting contract. And the first part of the contract was in voucher 2651, but if you combine them together, the total amount of that consulting contract was $9,670, which does not meet the $10,000 threshold, which means it didn't even need to be procured, but we did. And it was actually approved by the board. And that contract was explicitly given to the board, and everything that was worked was very detailed. The board had a document that calculated every single hour that was worked, what was worked on each day. So the hours that were worked were 123 hours, which equals $78 an hour, which is significantly less than another consulting contract. So I just want us to be very clear about these contracts. And if we are going to have concern about contracts from consultants, we should have concern about all of them. We should not be picking and choosing. That's all I have for this agenda item.
Okay, thank you.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve 7.8.
All right. I will second. We have a motion and a second to approve 7.8. We can take a vote. Mr. Todd,
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon,
Aye.
Ms. Zimmerman.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. Will show that passed 4-0. Moving on to agenda item 8.1 in general business, discussion consideration to adopt fiscal year 2026-2027 annual school district expenditure budget. Ms. Purcell, we are back to you again this evening.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Yes, we are recommending the governing board's approval to approve our adopted budget. Again, just to go back to our presentation, nothing has changed from our proposed or adopted, so that's our recommendation.
Right, thank you. We already had questions and answers about this, but is there anything else from board members right now?
Okay, I make a motion to approve and adopt the fiscal year 26-27 annual school district expenditure budget.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll go ahead and second it.
Thank you, Mr. Kenyon. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the expenditure budget. We'll take a vote. Mr. Todd,
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon,
Aye.
Ms. Zimmerman.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. Will show that passed 4-0. Moving on to agenda item 8.2, discussion consideration to approve the amended IGA for the use of Tyler Technology Schools ERP Pro. Ms. Purcell.
Thank you, Madam President. This is an sorry about that. An IGA, intergovernmental agreement. And this is an agreement that was approved back in, I believe the original agreement was back in, January 2023, which it's approved to last at least 5 years. So we have a few more years. But what we're bringing to you tonight is the amendment to this agreement. There was an additional module, you could say, that's added to allow our district to make payments ACH, our vendor payments. So that's something that was in process, previous before I got here. So that's something me and my team are going to try to look into to make that happen. Also, it was another amount. Okay, I'm sorry. So the $26,000, that's the information here, was a setup fee for this ACH program. And I think that's it. Mr. Haggerty, do you remember that was? That's right. I'm sorry. Yeah, the change. I'm sorry. Remember now. Like, we moved from Gallagher benefits. And if you guys recall, we changed that all our employees our benefits are now held in Visions as well. So it's all in one area for HR. So that was the implementation of that as well. And the county, Makisa, they're very behind on invoicing. So a lot of this, right? That's something that's very common with them getting back to us. But that's what we're bringing you to recommend to move forward with that. Any other questions?
Any board member questions about that? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the amended IGA for the use of Tyler Technology School ERP Pro benefits, enrollment, and EFT modules.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Todd. We have a motion and a second. We'll take a vote. Mr. Todd?
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon?
Aye.
Ms. Zimmerman?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. Will show that passed 4-0. Moving on to 8.3, discussion consideration to approve the intergovernmental agreement for White Tanks Learning Center.
Madam President, I have several questions.
Okay.
Okay.
I think they were
Um,
going to present, and I think
okay.
we're going to get some information and then we'll open for questions. Thank you.
Yes. We're presenting recommendation to approve this agreement. I'd like to have Dr. Zusi help support on this agreement.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam President, governing board members, community. As you know, we had a program that we housed on one of our campuses to provide services for our students that qualified for specialized services, specifically targeting their needs and behavior. And it was a level D program. As you know, we were looking for a different way to service these students more successfully. And so we have looked at several options. And so what we like to recommend to the board tonight is to approve an IGA with Litchfield Elementary School District with their White Tanks program. White Tanks is a level D placement that is resided and held in the district of Litchfield. When we compared it to the distances of the other programs that we could use to service our students, it is actually closer to our district than some of those other alternatives. The program definitely has been well established for years and providing great services for kiddos that have these needs, as well as very high success with transitioning students. We approximate to begin the year, I think Dr. Avila, 6 students are in need of this type of service. So that would be, we would only pay for students that are attending, which is much different than our old contract. We paid for like a number, and even if we got that number or not, we still owed the same bill. We're hopeful that our recommendation today, at what the board would like to see us do next, but Litchfield is also looking at this IGA in their board meeting for approval, and I'm hoping that with this recommendation we can move forward and then let parents know, soon here where their children will be attending school and offer tours and make sure that we have a successful transition to that program. Dr. Avila, would you have anything else to add? No? Okay.
All right, thank you. Mr. Todd, would you like to ask your questions?
Yes, and I have several, so please bear with me. In section 12.10 says that the agreement is signed by the parties, any potential conflict is waived. I have a couple questions with this section. First of all, who negotiated the IGA for the district and also for the Litchfield district? Be interesting to know. Who in our district received any written notice of potential for conflicts? And then who counseled the Liberty District on the type of potential conflicts that could be encountered? What are the potential conflicts the Liberty District could encounter? And who decided to proceed? Let me try to read my writing. Who decided to proceed with this agreement with these potential conflicts that are happening without discussing this? I look at this contract and it's legal counsel for both districts is the same person, which doesn't really sound good. So who's waiving? So we have some conflict. Who waived that? Was it the board? Was it our board president, superintendent? Did just the legal counsel who signed for both districts, one person, do that? I'm not sure who represented us exactly. But ultimately, as I know contracts, only the client could waive the conflict or waive the potential conflict. And I would think that would be the board because it's a district program. But as you go through this and you look at conflicts, they should only really be waived if the interests of both parties will be aligned during the entire term of the IGA. This contract has some pretty high-risk nature of services provided for us. As Dr. Ducey said, these are some special kiddos, and we certainly want to do right by them and all other students. But as I read this, Liberty's holding all of the liability, and there's a potential that interests will not align during the term of the agreement between the two districts. There's no indemnity here. So this contract says that Liberty's responsible for everything, yet has no control. So that's the first part. So I guess we can stop. We can answer that, but I have more along section 12.9 and some other stuff all through here. So this is, at the end of the day, there's I got a lot of questions still, but if we want to stop or you want me to keep going, you tell me what you'd prefer.
Yeah, I can go ahead, Government Board Member Todd, and explain your first question as far as the conflict of interest. It is not uncommon for a conflict of interest to be signed by the superintendent when many school districts use the same attorney's offices, and Litchfield uses the exact same attorney as Liberty does. And so that conflict interest was signed by me, sir, in regards to having Adele Shumway negotiate for both of us or put together the IGA for both of us. So I signed that conflict of interest. If the board in the future or in this circumstance does not want the superintendent to be the responsible party to sign those agreements, it's not uncommon for superintendents to do that across the valley. When you have a conflict of interest of this nature, I'm certainly open to that, but that's the answer to your first question. And then as
Okay.
far as the
Can I pause you for a second?
I'm sorry?
It said Udall Shumway, but Carrie O'Brien signed this and she's at Gus Rosefield. So I'm guess I'm more
Oh,
confused.
did I say the wrong attorney? I'm sorry. I forgive me. You are correct. It was that attorney. I apologize.
I'm going to be honest. I'm concerned with this, with you just leaving the Litchfield district 14 days ago and then signing off on a conflict. I do not think that this looks good to the public at all. Just, there's no way. And we don't know, there's no way somebody can look at this and advocate legally for the district when they're representing both sides. So I don't like that. Just for transparency purposes, as some board members like to say, I'm going to put that out there. But go ahead, carry on.
And then I guess your second question, I wasn't completely clear on the question, but I think you were asking about the liability. It's not uncommon for us to continue to be responsible. Our students are part of our system, part of our SES, ISS. So we are responsible for them under our insurance, but Litchfield also carries insurance for them to attend their facility. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
Well,
please let
yeah,
me know if I didn't.
it doesn't answer it, but my concern is still there. We have all the responsibility. We have none of the control. So they're not on our campus, whereas before, and I know the situation, I'm not saying that what we had with Sierra Schools was good, bad, or indifferent, but at least they were on our campus and we could watch that, we could see it. It was convenient for parents to be in our district and not being out of the district. And I know you're new, but I'm so tired of hearing, well, that's what everybody else does. That's just not defensible in court. Well, I robbed a bank because other people do it. It's not defensible. That phrase should never come out of an executive's mouth that, well, that's what everybody does. It doesn't matter. People do all sorts of things that are wrong. This world is full of people doing wrong. And we just shouldn't use that. That's not a good thing. And if they're all being negotiated by the same attorney and signed both times, then we don't even have anybody checking this to make sure that this is correct, that this is right. So again, thank you for the response. It just further concretes my concern with this. But carry on to the next one.
Do you have further questions?
I do.
Okay.
In section 12.9, says this agreement has been negotiated by the respective parties hereto and their attorneys, and the language hereof shall not be construed for or against any party. I don't know why Liberty would agree to this. If something were to go bad with a student and the services Litchfield provides, then again, the district needs to rely on the IGA to assess potential liability and the possibility for damages against the district. We need the ability to interpret contract clauses to our benefit. And again, this hasn't been looked at. And maybe to Dr. Doozy's point, there's a small number of education attorneys because this whole situation going on with the trust is just kind of a churn. But I think we need somebody who really understands contracts and can look at this. So carrying on, we can answer that question here in a minute. But there's no scope that I see on the cost of Liberty District as a part of this to this IGA. So if there's no mention number of students, or the type of specialty services that need to be provided to Liberty students, the IGA says that Liberty pays what Litchfield invoices each month. Maybe we need to consider some sort of a monthly cap, and if the amount is greater than the cap, then the board should approve the overage. We would probably know ahead of time that there's going to be an overage, so that should come to the district board to discuss. It says the payment's due in 15 days after the invoice. That's not real standard. It should be at least 30 days so the board can review it. Approval of the invoices. Otherwise, once again, we're approving vouchers after payment is already made with monthly board meetings that we seem to be doing more and more of instead of having them every 2 weeks. So the Liberty District is on the hook, again, as I've kind of talked about, for all liability regardless of the services Litchfield provides. So if this just blows up and Litchfield does nothing, we're paying them money still, yet they're doing nothing. And I know Litchfield's a good district. This has been a good program, but crazy things are happening all over the place. Section 3 and 5, which are Litchfield's obligations, are, I mean, honestly, they're just silent regarding the level of services that Litchfield's going to provide. So if we're responsible for complaints, the legal issues, all those things, then the IGA really needs to include a clause or statement that our services shall be rendered in accordance with professionally acceptable performance standards for the roles. I mean, that's just general language, that something of that nature. But I think the district needs assurance that all Litchfield personnel are properly trained for the role, going to meet required state and federal timelines for IEP processes, and will deliver services in accordance with all professional standards. It doesn't talk about any of that sort of stuff. Section 5.6 says that we will pay, the Liberty District is going to pay, to quote here, non-routine or negligently caused damages. Liberty personnel shall have visibility on a damage. We should have visibility to that. So we should be able to see video of it, what happened. We shouldn't just basically writing an open purchase order for a school district to tag us with any damage that they think is us. And so there should be some discussion between the districts about that and how that's going to be. Otherwise, we've just given them a blank check. So would we receive some sort of report that explains the circumstances, video surveillance, or I should say footage, is probably a better term with this. I don't think we can just agree to pay for damage because Litchfield decided to invoice us and we don't know any other details of it. So it's in here too, in section 2, it just says ED. And I think that probably needs to be spelled out what that acronym is, especially since it's the first reference there. In 3.6, I had a question about what does it says, in consultation by the district special education personnel on request. What exactly does that mean, and what district? Because we got 2 districts and it doesn't really specify that. Contracts should be very, very, very clean and very crisp, so there's no question later of what district can do this or can both do it. 3.7 quotes, it says, be responsible for providing and paying for the provision of FAPE to LASD 79 students only. Participating district remains responsible for provision of FAPE to its own students. That's already addressed in 4.2, so I think it can probably just come out. 3.8, again, quoting says, provides notice of any pandemic-related campus closure to participating district within 24 hours of the decision to close, unless closure is mandated by federal, state, or local order. I'm just wondering, can we just remove pandemic related to the clause? Because any closure we probably need to know about pretty quickly. 3.9, again, quoting, implement the special education services, related services and supplementary aids, assistive technology and services identified in each participating district student's individual education program, IEP. Then it goes on to say, except as otherwise identified in section 5.4 and 5.6. That does not make sense when you review 5.4, or it says except as otherwise identified in sections 5.4 and 5.6. I don't know if that makes sense as you read through that. 3.11, quote, discipline and conduct manifestation determination reviews for each participating district student in accordance with LASD 79's discipline matrix and in accordance with applicable law. So with that, should the Litchfield discipline matrix accompany the agreement? What version of Litchfield discipline matrix applies? And how are we notifying parents of Liberty to make them aware that those Liberty students who we're fully responsible for, who the board has said this is what needs to happen with our students, now is potentially under a different discipline matrix? So 5.4, quoting, the WTLC program provided by LASD 79 will include behavioral support services and related services determined by the IEP and participating district. LASD 79 and participating district may agree for the provisions of these services pursuant to the White Tanks Learning Center current year fee schedule. In that, it's the very first time that the IGA uses WTLC. So really, this needs to be consistent throughout the IGA. The rest of it's talking about LASD, then all of a sudden we get this. So you need to basically, legal needs to go back. This is just a shoddy reviewed contract, to put it out there. But they either introduce the acronym in the beginning of the agreement or continue to spell out the acronym. But what's there is not appropriate for a contract. And then is the fee schedule the same as the pricing sheet? Those are both quoted as used in Exhibit A. This section, 5.4, should refer to Exhibit A for clarity. Move on to 5.6. It says LASD 79 facility and equipment damage. Participating district is responsible for non-routine or, I think I already covered this one. But let's talk about it. Negligently caused damages to LASD 79 facilities, equipment caused by participating district students. LASD 79 will repair damaged facilities or replace any damaged equipment and will invoice participating district for actual costs. We should, again, I just have to know, are we really agreeing to this clause? Because I think the Liberty Personnel District should be allowed to view and assess the damages before it's being billed for. And then this clause isn't really clear as to the facility. Should this specify the White Tanks Learning Center, or what are we doing there? Section 6.2, 7.2, and 7.3 need to clarify what days means. Is it calendar days, business days, or school days? Just says days. Section 8, 9, 11, and 12 reference to parties. It should be capitalized to be consistent with other uses of the term throughout the IGA. So we've changed there. Section 10, I don't know, but those section numbers are underlined. So I don't know what started that. 12.5, in any case where any notice or other communication is required or permitted to be given hereunder, such notice or communication shall be in writing and personally delivered. A. B. Sent by certified United States mail, postage prepaid, return receipt requested. C. Transmitted by telecopy with confirmation of receipt received, or D. Sent by way of a recognized overnight courier service, postage prepaid, return receipt requested, with instructions to deliver on the next business day, in each case as follows. What exactly does transmitted by telecopy mean? I've never heard that phrase, and I've asked several people, and nobody seems to know what it is. Would email be acceptable as well? Because that doesn't seem to be listed. So looking at, for example, if notice under section 3.8 is required with all of these notice methods, will all these notice methods work within 24 hours? So again, I'm not sure that handles everything. 12.7, the party shall comply with the fingerprinting requirements of ARS 15.512 and the E-Verify provisions of ARS 41.4401 unless otherwise exempted. My notes are, why would Liberty need to comply with fingerprint requirements and E-Verify for this IGA? Under 4.4, Liberty cannot send staff to White Tanks Learning Center. If we have no staff or service providers rendering any services over there, then why, I don't even know why that's in there. Oh, why would we need to do that? But I mean, there's a lot of questions here. I think this needs to be tabled. I think the board needs to have some more review of this and probably get some true legal counsel on the entire process. And legal should just be told, we're not going to listen to, well, everybody's doing it, because that's a pretty standard phrase from at least one lawyer that's involved in this, and it's just not an acceptable phrase. So that wraps up my concerns, my questions. I would make a motion that this be tabled until such time that we can get true legal advice on this and have separate lawyers for each district working on it from separate law firms.
I'd like the opportunity to make comment, ask questions.
Yes, please go ahead.
I think you can after a motion has been made in a second, then we can discuss.
I'll go ahead and second the motion.
It's interesting that the rest of the board wasn't given the opportunity to ask questions before a motion was made. I have a couple things. First of all, I think we need to remember that as a board and as a district, it's super important that we put our students first. And on August 3rd, these students need a place to be educated. And unfortunately, last year, we are no longer going to be able to partner with the company that provided this service previously. Okay. And we did not have a superintendent or an interim superintendent. And so Dr. Duzzi became superintendent on July 1st. And she was tasked with finding a placement for these students. We are 3 weeks from the start of school, and these students need a place to go. Okay. I think one of the most important things about this agreement that was not mentioned previously is 7.3. I'm going to read it. It says, either party may terminate this agreement at any time for any reason upon 30 days advance written notice to the other party. Our previous contract for a different company had nothing like this. And that was one of the big things that the board was concerned about, is that it actually automatically renewed. And so when I read this agreement, I thought, okay, this puts the board, the district, everyone, if we are not satisfied with the services provided, and I'm not saying we're not going to be, I'm just talking from a contract standpoint, this gives us the opportunity to look for something else. So I think that that is a very, very important part of the contract that was not mentioned. Some of the things that I'm going to get to my questions, but I want to just comment on a couple of things. There was a comment made about we're not having control. Well, we didn't have control when Sierra Schools was running the program. We had no control. We were told that we didn't have control about when they were exited and when they were not. This explicitly states that it is the IEP, that a member of the Liberty District is part of the IEP team. It is required as part of this agreement to ensure that that we do have a say over our students, because ultimately we are responsible. It's just like if we were to send them, somewhere downtown, right? But now we're asking our students to sit on a bus for 50 minutes, or they can sit on a bus for 20 or 30. I think that's an important point. So to say that we're not going to have any control, I think that from my standpoint in reading this, that's an inaccurate statement. And I don't think we had control when they were on our campus. I don't think anything in here states that we can't go visit the classrooms or anything like that. And, you know, kind of this idea that we need 30 days because the board approves it. Well, the board has been retroactively approving vouchers for years while Mr. Todd was the board president and could have changed that. So to say that it's a problem now, I just don't really understand it, to be perfectly honest with you. 3.3, there was a question about whether people would be properly certified. 3.3 says provide adequate personnel, including but not limited to an appropriately certified teacher. So it discusses that right there. And then, sorry, there were a lot of numbers mentioned. 5.4, it says that the White Tanks Learning Center program provided by LESD 79 will include behavioral support services and related services as determined by the IEP and the participating district. So that means that we have to be in agreement. We are having a say in those, and it is spelled out in the fee schedule, which is very comparable to our old fee schedule. And so I went back and looked at that agreement because I did want to see, the differences in cost. And so I went back and looked, and they are, essentially like $5 difference for each thing. It's very comparable. One of the things that I wanted to ask about that I felt like was kind of a cause of concern last time was the cost of transporting our students. So who would be responsible for transporting our students for this program?
The transportation will be provided by Liberty.
Okay.
And then, if I may, President Schmidt, I actually recall now why I use the words Udell Shumway, because in processing this with the other attorney's office, we also had an attorney at Udell Shumway also look at the contract and give us feedback, and that's why that name was at the top of my mind. So, so definitely went through and pointed out some of the things that Board Member Todd pointed out about the damage, making sure that that and there's cameras there, so we definitely can look back at the cameras to see what exactly happened if there is things damaged. And overall, summarizing, the contract is very much like a private day school contract, which is typical. It provides benefits to your students. However, they're still your students. And like students in a private day school, you will need to stay involved and do some monitoring to ensure FAPE is being delivered. So just because we contract with them, it does not remove our responsibility, is basically what the attorney is saying. So I just wanted to comment on that because I remembered Udell Shumway looking at a message, and I just want to confirm with the board, we actually did have another attorney, Dr. Avila, reached out to attorney that we use for special ed law and had them look at it as well. So
Thank you. One of the kind of concerns previously, previous contract was how is it determined how a student can exit the program? And so can you talk a little bit about that and how that would work with this contract?
absolutely. So I actually have that answer prepared because that was one of our governing board questions. Let me just get there. Okay, so prior to the student attending White Tanks, we would expect Liberty to be responsible for the IEP, determining whether a level D is necessary for the child. Once at White Tanks, Litchfield will be responsible for the IEP because the teacher at White Tanks will know the student the best. They'll be able to report on their progress. We would only be paying LASD to write teachers for IEPs. Actually, that's not answering your question. Hold on. That's about IEPs. Excuse me. Oh, here we go. The student's exit from White Tanks is an IEP deemed decision based on the individual student's needs. While White Tanks has established exit criteria on their campus, it has to do with eloping, physical interactions that are negative with other students. Those criteria may be adjusted to reflect a student's unique needs. Prior to the student's placement at White Tanks, the IEP team will meet and they'll talk about and determine what the student's skills and need to be at for them to exit a level D program into a level C program, or maybe even perhaps a level B program. and determine if the student qualifies for that level D. And then exit criteria is developed at the time of placement in that level D. In addition, Liberty has been asked to participate in every IEP meeting and will assist the team in developing this exit criteria as the participating district.
Okay, so we certainly will have kind of a say, because one of the concerns, again, in a previous contract was that we really didn't have a say in the exit. Is that correct, Dr. Avila? Okay. And so, I think that this is a great option for our students. We are talking about 6 students right now. So, we're not talking about the level C. We're talking about a very small group. And I think that it's beneficial that, it's been established. It is close in proximity because, as a parent, I can think that I wouldn't want to have my student sitting on a bus 50 minutes one way, over 2 hours. And so, I appreciate that you brought this to the board and was, a quick problem solver to find a placement so that these students can get the education that they deserve. So that's all my comments at this time.
Thank you.
Madam President, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
I agree with what Board Member Zimmerman was saying, where we do need to have something very quickly established and determined for these parents and these kids. So I'm still of the opinion that this needs to be tabled, mainly because of a lot of the concerns that Board Member Todd has. Our job as board members is to protect the Liberty Elementary School District, the families, the district itself, the taxpayers, to make sure that we are doing our best, especially when we enter into agreements. There are some decent things and good things in this contract that Ms. Zimmerman pointed out, and some that haven't been spoken about yet. However, Board Member Todd has some very valid points where our district, I feel like this contract needs to be more specific to protect the district. And so if Dr. Duzzi and your staff can go back maybe with, again, a different attorney than Litchfield was using, and just kind of go over some of, go over the points that Board Member Todd had addressed, clean up the language in here. That way we see the protection for our district. We're constantly talking about budget, constantly talking about ways we can be better financial stewards of our resources. However, as Board Member Todd pointed out, there's nothing protecting us when it comes financially with this contract. And so, yes, I get it. We can, and I do appreciate the option for us to be able to terminate a contract within the 30 days written notice if something is falling apart. However, entering into agreement is extremely crucial, that you have it done correctly. I don't want to rush this. Don't want to just approve it tonight just to get a direction. I think that we're going to be meeting next week. Hopefully that's enough time that you can get this cleaned up and brought back to the board next week.
Madam President,
Yes.
I think as well, looking at this and hearing Dr. Duzzi's supplemental information or additional information on UL Shumway, it to me sounds like they provided a very high level summary of the contract, but neither attorney really provided any guidance with respect to potential conflicts and how the districts would mitigate them within the contract. Also, I respect Ms. Zimmerman talking about viewing cameras, but there's nothing in this contract that talks about dispute resolution or how that's going to be resolved. I don't know that we can view those. And with student privacy and other stuff, now we're an outside district trying to come in to look at maybe one of our students and a student from another district. That all needs to be clarified a little bit better if there is conflict resolution You have a clause about unilateral termination of the contract that's in there, but it was it doesn't read clear. There's just a lot to this contract that is this is a very, very poor contract. I'm never speechless, I guess, but I'm close to speechless as to how this stuff gets through. And I'd love to know how much we would charge for this contract, because it's a clear cut and paste from others, and it's poor. And so lots of districts probably are right. They've probably just taken this because the attorney said it was good, but this is not a good contract. This is not good at all. So I think my final comment.
Ms. Schmidt.
Go ahead.
So I just want to ask for the record that an attorney has reviewed and approved this contract. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, our attorney that represents us and that conflict of interest, correct, that also represents Litchfield, both reviewed on behalf of both of us. And also Del Shumway, a representative, also looked at the contract.
Okay, thank you. I would just encourage board members, like, if you have concerns, to send them, like we have been asked to do many times, so that they can be addressed, because it's very difficult to address something so extensive in a meeting, so that we can make decisions for our students, because it seems that this is going to get tabled, and that affects students, and that affects parents, and that affects our community. And so it is our job to review contracts and to ask questions. Certainly I do that. And I know other board members do that as well, and I respect that. But we are here for the students. And unfortunately, we'll see what happens.
All right, thank you. We currently do have a motion to table with a second up to vote, so we will take that vote. Mr. Todd.
Yeah, I think the second was also to have different attorneys, completely different attorneys look at this now. So not Miss O'Brien and somebody from Gust, but something different. But I am going to vote yes to table this with those as my original motion stated.
President Schmidt and fellow board members.
Yes, please.
Board Member Todd, your motion was to table this agenda item. I did not hear to consult with different counsel. Would you like
Yes.
to reinstate the motion?
Well, yeah, we need different counsel. We need our own counsel, not counsel that is representing two districts. That's not a good situation at all.
Yeah, I think you need to amend your motion then, Mr. Todd,
Okay, well,
because the original motion was just to table this agenda item.
I think
And
we're gonna
Mr.
need to go
Kenyon
back and-
seconded.
As I explained it, I don't believe that's the case. That was not the intent.
So we should be able to move forward with the vote to table it, with the understanding that administration is going to follow up with the items discussed.
Okay. And we currently have a yes from Mr. Todd in the vote.
With those provisions, yes.
Yeah, we gotcha.
Okay,
Um,
President Schmidt.
Yep.
So the motion will read, motion to table this agenda item with the discussion of the items discussed.
Yes, the concerns items discussed, yes.
Ms. Schmidt, I don't feel like we can change the motion. It was made and it was seconded. If you'd like to change the motion, you need to suggest an amended motion. I feel like you're going to set us up for an open meeting law violation.
No, I think we need to go back and see what the exact motion was, because my impression of that was that it was very clear that we needed different lawyers to look this over. I clearly said, as I recall, that was the case. So maybe we should pause the meeting and ask IT to go pull it, and let's see what the original motion was. And then we can clean it up. But my intent certainly was to say I didn't say it, I'm sorry, but I believe I was clear in my explanation that we needed to table this until such time it can be properly reviewed by different attorneys.
Okay. Thank you,
Not-
Mr. Todd. We're going to pause the meeting for right now. Thank you.
Give you time.
Meeting paused at 7:22 p.m. All right, we are reconvening at 7:32 p.m. I believe we have the audio of the meeting
Yes.
that we can listen to see what the original motion was.
I'm going to play the audio, Mr. Todd, because the problem is with the timestamp, because the meeting is live, the timestamp keeps changing. So
I understand.
I've just pulled it up so that we have it queued.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of questions here. I think this needs to be tabled. I think the board needs to have some more review of this and probably get some true legal counsel on the entire process. And legal should just be told, we're not going to listen to, well, everybody's doing it, because that's a pretty standard phrase from at least one lawyer that's involved in this, and it's not an acceptable phrase. So that wraps up my concerns, my questions. I would make a motion that this be tabled. So we can get.
Okay, so Mr. Kenyon seconds it right then. You motioned to table it. So
He did second right then. You attempted to speak and then he tabled it. Actually, have we called the meeting back into order yet? I don't think we have.
Yes, I did.
Sorry, it's cutting out a little bit. All right. Well, you attempted to discuss, and I said we had a motion, so we could take a second and then discuss. So it wasn't right away.
no,
But let's do this. Let's just withdraw the motion.
Okay.
So I can make another motion withdrawing it. I'll make another motion that we table this agenda item until such time the board can get new legal advice from two separate, well, a separate law firm from that's representing the other school district. And then the board should convene an executive session to hear that advice directly from legal. Again, it should not be anybody that represents or a law firm that represents, routinely represents Litchfield School District as closely as the current lawyer does. I think that summarizes the motion.
President Schmidt,
Yes, Ms. Camerata.
Board Member Todd, can you please repeat that motion so I can type it?
Yes, we're going to motion to table this agenda item until such time that the board,
One
Can
moment,
convene-
please. One moment. Motion to table this agenda item.
until such time
Okay,
that the board can meet in executive session
okay,
to get legal advice
okay,
from a lawyer / law firm that does not provide general counsel to both districts. We're trying to exclude the conflict of having one lawyer looking at both sides of this.
okay, sir, just one moment, please. Okay, so the motion will read to table this agenda item until such time that the board can meet in executive session to get legal advice from a lawyer / law firm that does not provide general counsel to both. Or did your motion end at counsel?
No, to both. So we basically
To both
can't,
school districts?
correct. We can't have a lawyer that
Thank you.
represents both districts be signing on both ends of this thing. We can't have a law firm that represents both districts. Having one lawyer sign in two places for both sides does not make sense. That is a potential conflict.
Okay, sir, thank you for the motion.
Can I?
I'm still going to second that motion.
Oh. Yep.
So
Go ahead, Dr. Ducey.
yeah, I just did some internet research. Litchfield's next board meeting is August 11th. They did pass the IGA tonight in their board meeting. And so, of course, if we want to look back on this in executive session next week with a different attorney to rewrite the contract, could it be a consideration that we approve this current IGA for a certain period of time until we rewrite the new one with the new attorney? And the only reason why I'm saying that is because if we do not do that, our students will not have a program on the first day of school.
So, but I guess this is my concern with this. There's no guarantee that the board will choose to go this route. So if we do that, we start the kids on the first day, which I 100% believe these students need services. I'm not trying to stop that. I'm trying to protect the interests of the entire district, up to and including these students. If let's just say we approve this for 30 days, and then the board gets together and chooses something different, we're bouncing the kids again, potentially, to some other program, some other location, some other problem. We've paid a lot of money in transitional fees and time. We've had a lot of extra time in this, and for this to be coming to the board now is unacceptable. But again, whatever training school administrators go to, it's somewhere it's written, just try to jam this down on the board at the last second so their hands are tied. And that's what's happened here. We've had multiple meetings where this could have been addressed before now. We've been paying a lot, $20,000 almost more for transition time, consulting time, all this time. And we ran around and we shook hands with all sorts of teachers that did stuff, but we didn't accomplish this critical thing. So I don't know if that works to set the kids up for a potential bounce a second time in the school year. And if we get another attorney that says, this is horrible, this can't go, we're there. And hopefully we're going to get an attorney that doesn't say, well, everybody else is doing it, so just sign it. Because that's just, it comes up every single time this particular lawyer gives advice. Everybody else is doing it. So I'm concerned about that. I'm very concerned. It sounds like, Litchfield stands to gain a lot of money. Their board may need to come together a little faster too, and have a special meeting or discuss this. But we should have had a special meeting sooner. This should have been brought to us sooner if this was a case. We've had the opportunity for additional meetings. I think this entire board has said we can meet. We'll meet anytime, especially as the school year gets closer to starting. And here we are already. First time. And we've got this problem. So I don't know if that's a viable solution. I think we've been backed into the corner once again with a problem.
Board Member Todd, you absolutely make great points. I will share that for the last 2 months, we have researched different programs to provide our students that are level D. So that did take some time. We also toured facilities. That took some time. In addition to getting the attorneys to develop the IGA, go back and forth. with
IGA is a
Litchfield.
cut and paste. They didn't develop anything. That's a cut and paste. You
Well,
can
we-
tell it.
Yeah,
It's done a million times.
yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we still had to wait. No matter how we believe that the IGA was created, there was still waiting time to have it prepared and presented and signed by the superintendent at Litchfield. We have been trying to maximize the time, and I do agree with you. I wish that we could have brought this to you sooner, but I still would ask the board to consider perhaps approving it for 30 days while we have the executive session next week. If that's the motion, that's what we vote on. We table it. We have another attorney review it. We go through line by line, make sure that the board accepts the terms of the IGA so we can take it back to Litchfield. They can take it back to their board so that they can review it and find it, see if it's acceptable to them. Either way, if we don't do something tonight, the students will be bounced at the beginning of the year because we don't have an IGA with anyone else, and we're going to be working on that, and that's going to take weeks to get for another institution. So of course, it's at the board's desire of what the board would like us to do, but I just want to point that out as far as maybe a viable solution to get us to a place where students can start on the first day of school, but still respect and honor the desire of the board to have the contract reviewed again by a different attorney.
Well, and I think it's important to note that the board has the right to have its own attorney in this. It's not selected by you. The board has selected the attorneys in the past that work
The
for them.
board
The district has worked
president
for them.
selects the attorneys. The
No,
board
that's not
president.
No, it's not correct. The board does. We've done that before. We took motions in the past, but that's off topic. We're not going to discuss that now. But the board needs to be able to meet with legal counsel on this and get their input, not just whatever lawyer somebody else called to get. We need to meet with that. But the motion is clear that's on the table now that it needs to be a separate attorney. So I think I mean, if somebody wants to offer amendment, we can consider it.
Ms. Schmidt.
Yep, go ahead.
I'd like to make some comments before a possible amendment. This idea that the board chooses the program, the board is responsible for reviewing and approving contracts, but we hire a superintendent to provide their expertise and bring their recommendations to the board. So this idea that they may be bounced to a different program, I don't understand that, because that's not my understanding of the board's role. So we can certainly look at this contract, but as Dr. Doozy stated, like, this isn't, this has been in the works, and it's interesting that you want it brought to the board earlier, but yet you have stated that you didn't want a consultant doing anything. You didn't want them to have access to anything. So I'm not really sure how it's supposed to be accomplished before 14 days. And just for the record, the contract was for $9,600, not $20,000. So with that, I would like to propose an amendment to approve the IGA between Litchfield Elementary School District and Liberty Elementary School District for alternative and special education services for 30 days.
President Schmidt,
Yes, Ms. Camerata.
Member Zimmerman, I need you to please repeat that.
Okay, I'm going to propose an amendment to the motion to approve the amended intergovernment agreement between Litchfield
Okay, one moment. Okay.
and Liberty School District
Mm-hmm.
for alternative and special education services
Okay.
for 30 days.
President Schmidt,
Yes.
the motion will read, motion to approve the amended IGA between Litchfield and Liberty School District for alternative and special education services for 30 days.
That sounds correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will second that. Okay, so we have an amendment and a second. We'll vote on that. On the amendment, yes, we're voting on the amendment. Mr. Todd,
I'm a no because it does not include seeking additional legal counsel.
It-
Review.
it's an amendment to the original.
Right. I'm saying I am voting no on the amendment because it gutted everything and took away additional legal consultation and review and advice that I had in my original motion.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Todd, that is not my intention. I view the amendment.
It wasn't my intention on the original motion. You made an issue about it, so we're just.
Okay, thank
we go.
you. We
Play by
have your
your
vote. We have your vote counted as a nay. Mr. Kenyon,
Nay.
Ms. Zimmerman,
Aye.
I'm also an I. Will show that that did not pass. It tied 2-2.
Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Kenyon.
I'd like to make an amended motion as well.
Okay, go ahead.
I motion to, sorry, I lost my notes. I motion to approve the amended IGA for the use of Tyler Technologies.
No, that is not the correct.
Oh, sorry. Yep, I got in the wrong one again. My amended motion is to approve the amended IGA between Litchfield Elementary School District 79 and Liberty Elementary School District number 25 for alternative and special education services for 30 days, in which time the governing board would have the opportunity for legal review of the IGA. Which would include, I'm going slow, Ms. Camerata,
Thank you.
a separate attorney / legal firm to represent Liberty Elementary School District than that of Litchfield.
President Schmidt.
Yes, Ms. Camerata.
Member Kenyon, if that ends your motion, the motion will read to approve the amended IGA between Litchfield Elementary School District number 79 and Litchfield Elementary School District number 25, and Liberty Elementary School District number 25 for alternative and special education services for 30 days, in which time the governing board will have the opportunity for legal review of the IGA, which would include a separate attorney / legal firm to represent Liberty Elementary School District than that of Litchfield's.
Correct.
Thank you.
I will
Second.
that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Yep, Ms. Zimmerman seconded it. And we can take a vote. Mr. Todd,
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon,
Aye.
Ms. Zimmerman.
Aye.
I'm also an I. We will show that that passed 4-0.
May I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
And stop me if you don't want this, but my question is, you said Litchfield approved the long term. Isn't their board going to have to meet to approve a 30-day contract? I apologize, that came up just after we took the vote. I thought about that, so I would, if that's a concern, we could reconsider.
Dr. Ducey, do you?
I just know that it passed as presented. So
Okay.
yeah, I would
Sure.
imagine if we only passed it for 30 days, then that would be our part of the agreement that we are agreeing to the IGA for the 30 days.
Okay.
Right, but wouldn't they have to take a vote to agree to it for 30 days?
No.
Because they've accepted it in whole. So I guess we could do it for 30 days and give notice right away? I don't know.
I do not believe so, but we could definitely look into that.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to Item 8.4, discussion consideration to approve SY 26-27 stipends. Dr. Doozy presenting.
Thank you. All right, Madam President, Governing Board, Community, and those that are still with us this evening, I'm here to present to you our stipend update. This has been a laborious journey. As you all know, the board definitely wanted a bigger deep dive into stipends and how we're using our funds to pay for extra duties and hard to fill and all the different stipends that Liberty has used in the past. The board did approve a group of stipends earlier this year, but I'm here to bring the next set of stipends. I agree. Governing Board Member Todd mentioned that this is taking some time. I agree, it is taking some time. The stipend schedule for Liberty is very complex, and we want to make sure that we're doing a thorough job. So tonight, my hope is that I'm bringing you some very thorough information, that you're able to ask me any questions and provide the opportunity to vote on our recommendation. So the purpose of the presentation tonight is to provide the governing board and our community with an update on the recommended changes to specific Liberty Elementary District 25 stipends, and then also request the governing board approve the stipend recommendations for tonight. Please note that the additional stipends that are still being reviewed, as I stated at the beginning. Recommendations for those stipends will be presented at the August 2026 meeting. We're asking the board to consider approval of these stipends included in today's presentation because these roles are important responsibilities that are legally mandated that need to be in place before the start of the year to ensure a successful opening of the school year. I did take time just to align this presentation to the strategic priorities and goals of the district. Stipends do have an impact on achieving an important action step to accomplishing the goals and priorities set by the board. Some priorities include instructional services in the sense of increasing student proficiency on state assessments. Our EL coordinators and our gifted coordinators are very important to that process, as well as increasing opportunities to engage students. That's also an important part of that hard to fill or those other athletics, which we will talk about that this evening too, giving those students opportunities to participate in athletics and clubs. Also employee excellence, stipending teachers for hard to fill, as well as stipending staff for extra duties that are beyond their job roles, definitely creates a supportive environment for our staff. Also, professional development to all employee groups. So this is really important as we talk about the development that goes into preparing our coordinators to fulfill their roles. And then also employee benefits, that goes back to stipends to ensure that staff are being compensated for those extra duties that are beyond their role. And then last but not least is just making sure that we're optimizing our budget, that we're really looking at the stipends that add value to our students to receive a high quality education. So the first thing that our group decided to do is define a stipend. As you know, that list that was brought to you originally, it had a lot of different things on it. Vacation payouts, superintendent contract payouts. It had, I'm trying to think what else it had on it. It also had the $500 signing bonus. It had, just some different things. So tonight, when I talk about stipends, I wanted to be really clear with the 3 criteria that we used while we were talking about this stipends. One is Liberty is already approved. The board's already approved a hard to fill employee stipends. And then our definition would be the hard to fill supported by data. So this is something that we would revisit every year to in our criteria to make sure that it is still a hard to fill position. I did put a little nuance in here because these stipends have already been approved in a previous meeting, but I did want to bring it to the board's attention that there may be an opportunity to revisit what's already been approved because, and it might not be this year because our staff has already learned that the board approved it and it's already part of their salary for hard to fill. But The way that Liberty has done stipends in the past is they've layered stipends. So I'll give you an example up there is middle school. If I'm a middle school math teacher, I get a middle school math stipend, a middle school teacher stipend. And if I'm at a Title I school, I also get a middle school Title I stipend. What would be our future recommendation if the board would want to look at this for next year is that we would not duplicate the same stipend for the same role. So for example, this teacher might be at a Title I teaching math and be a middle school teacher, but they would get the middle school math stipend and the Title I math stipend, teaching in a Title I school, not also the middle school content stipend, because you're duplicating, it may be questioned that you're duplicating that stipend for the same role. I just wanted to bring that up to the board's attention. Again, you guys have already discussed this. You've already approved it for this year, and we've let staff know that it remains the same as it was last year. Another criteria is additional job stipend for work beyond the current assigned position. And then last but not least, our definition of a stipend is a stipend for degrees or endorsements that add value to the current assigned position and are not required for the position, but preferred. So an example of this is if you are a 5th grade or 6th grade science teacher, but you hold a math endorsement, we may need to look at how that adds value to your current role. So those are the definitions that we came up with when we were analyzing these stipends to bring to you today. So here we are to the recommendation of our stipends. We looked at and these are the ones that are really pressing because they are legally required that we have to have people to do this work. And so in the past, we had what's called a lead teacher for 504s. We had a lead teacher for EL and a lead teacher for gifted. As you can see, the past stipend amount, no matter how many kids you serviced on your campus, it was $1,100 annually. What we recommend tonight is we do a title shift, which is Site 504 coordinator, Site EL coordinator, and Site gifted coordinator. So it's more specific that it is for the site, not for the district. The recommended stipend amount is actually going to be a tiered caseload stipend. And I'm going to go over that in the next few slides. But just to give you a little rationale, as we were working through these stipends, we had several meetings with several different stakeholders in these meetings. Each title more accurately reflects the responsibilities and the additional responsibilities of the role, which is why we decided to change the name, because it's not just someone leading the work, but it actually is coordinating all that's required legally. Tiered caseloads aligned to the work involved based on students served across each campus versus one set stipend, and I'll show you that in just the next slide. Students count can be calculated on the 100th day is what we recommend to the board, because that's a lot of our funding is dependent on the 100th day. So looking at our numbers on the 100th day for that tiered caseload stipend. District office will enter the PARs, E-PARs. So this is really important for accuracy. That way our site leaders, they will not be tracking this data. Our district office staff will be tracking this data to ensure that consistency across all the eight schools based on a 100-day count. And then the EL coordinator stipend will now be paid out of Title III versus M&O. In the past, we've billed all of our EL coordinator stipends or our lead teacher EL out of M&O, and we do have funding in Title III that can only be used for EL, and we can still use the tutoring as well, but that shifts that money that we've been spending in M&O to Title III where it actually belongs more. It's more accurately categorized. So this is how the tiered caseload stipend schedule works. We're recommending, so the caseload is counted on the 100th day of school, and the coordinators accept the role in August knowing the range. The count includes the site's 504 kiddos, the EL kiddos, including the kids that are on FEP. Those are the kids that are still having a plan, even though they might not be categorized as EL, so it's still work for that EL coordinator. And then gifted students, and that includes students that are currently identified as gifted, as well as those that are working in their portfolio, because again, that would be the responsibility of that gifted coordinator to manage all of those students. So 100 or more students, and this applies for all the coordinators, 504, EL, and gifted. 100 more students at their site, the stipend would be $2,000. 75 to 99 students, the stipend would be $1,600. 50 to 74, the stipend would be 1,200. 25 to 49, the stipend would be 800. And fewer than 25 students, the stipend would be 400. And you can kind of look at the increments. You can kind of make sense of 400, 400, 400 is kind of the math that we did, in addition to the range of students as you move up to 100 or more. So what does that actually look like? Right? So here's an example of the EL coordinator. Even though this isn't showing an actual cost savings of stipends, please keep in mind, as I stated, this will no longer be coming from M&O. It'll be coming from Title III, which is our EL budget. So if you look at across our schools, we have a school that has 119 students all the way to a school that has 8 students. We also have the current FEP students and their FEP students. And then you can see the stipend projections based on the amount of kids that each of those EL coordinators will be providing services to. And then here is the tier caseload stipend for a 504 coordinator. Again, you can see there's some campuses that have 45, while other campuses have 11. So, which again, just supports why our recommendation would be to use the tiered model to accurately represent the workload that might be different from campus to campus based on students that need that help. So as you can see, this is projected based on current counts. This is projected to have some cost savings for the district in our M&O. This is an example for the tier caseload stipend for the gifted coordinator. And again, you can see it's the same type of table here to explain. You have your current gifted students, you have your students in the portfolio process, which again are still the responsibility of the gifted coordinator. And then you would have the total amount of stipend based on that tiered model. Again, as you can see, there's also a cost savings with this plan of about $3,000. So do you want me to proceed or do you want me to pause so we can talk about maybe the tiered caseload stipend for the EL coordinator, 504 coordinator, and gifted coordinator? Would that be acceptable?
Sure, let's
Okay.
pause here and take questions on this first section.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Ms. Schmidt.
Yes, please go ahead.
First, I really appreciate, the thought and, the work that went into this. My question is about the gifted caseload for Westar. Are you including the MAG students in that gifted, in the current gifted? And would that, I want to call it by the right name that you're calling it, site coordinator, would they actually be writing those? I should know the acronym.
Yeah.
I have a gifted student. But would they be writing those plans, or would the MAG teacher, and so would that adjust?
You know what? That is a very good point. I had one of our colleagues pull this data, and so I actually need to go back and verify that. But we would, since the MAG teacher would be responsible for writing those plans, we would not add that to the gifted coordinator.
Okay,
Would be my recommendation.
thank you.
There's a fly buzzing around. Sorry.
Any other questions about this section before we move on?
I have a couple questions, Madam President.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I like the tiered approach. I see you with that. My question is, how do we, it doesn't look like we have a policy there. If the number jumps over the magical number to take you to the next hurdle, is that prorated or what happens there?
Great
So I think we
question.
just need to clarify that.
Yep, absolutely. Great question. We actually talked about that in great length. And what we recommend is that the 100th day is the count. So whatever it is on the 100th day, that is the count of the stipend. And it's paid out one time based on that 100-day count.
Okay. My other question is, if we change those titles to coordinators, do we need to do job descriptions for that? Or how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. Currently, there is one job description we could find for stipends, and I think that was lead teacher, which that is not on our list tonight. So if that is the preference of the board to have job descriptions for our stipend, that is work that our group would have to do. Because there has not been, and not that that means that that's okay, but there has not been job descriptions for stipends. My recommendation for the board to consider would actually be a list of duties versus a job description, because this is not a role that can be filled by someone outside of our organization. It has to be someone that works for us. It's an internal stipend only. So a list of job duties would be appropriate. And that's something, if the board would like us to do that, we're happy to do that. I think we should do that anyway, because we need to be clear on what the expectations are, and we could provide that in a Friday update. Or at the pleasure of the board, we could also look at job descriptions. It just would delay our next steps.
I'm comfortable with the, I think your idea of the job duties is good. I just probably misspoke with the job description, trying to come up with the right phrase, but you threw me a lifeline. I appreciate it. But I do think that's the case, because what I found in the past is that different people holding the same title or getting the same stipend have a totally different opinion of what they should be doing, and we're paying equally. So my other question with this is, we have traditionally, clearly the MAG program teachers have been very hard positions to fill. In fact, most of those teachers, with the exception of Ms. Crowley, were not gifted endorsed when they started. I feel like in this process, and maybe you can speak to this, but we start paying them a stipend right away. We've also paid for their additional schooling and so forth, for them to all leave those positions. So I think, I don't know if we tie a stipend to this where they have to agree to a contract that they're going to stay for a certain amount of time. And maybe this is actually needs to be agendized under, when we're paying for those positions, we pay them to become gifted endorsed. In a way, that's kind of a stipend in itself, because we're paying for that, but then they just take off and leave, and they go to a different school or different district or those sorts of things. I think we probably need to address that, because we're investing in them. We want a return on that investment.
Absolutely. At the board's pleasure, we can definitely look at that. I think it would be outside maybe of this recommendation, because I think probably, Board Member Todd, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what I'm hearing you say is when the district funds someone's education to get a credential or to better themselves as far as making themselves more sellable, right? Because they have extra credentials and we've paid for that, is honoring that somehow by serving us for a certain period of time. So that would be more, I would think, a recommendation that would fall into tuition reimbursement or how we, pay for people's programs. So that's something we can definitely add to our list to ensure that we do get some time out of the funds that we're dedicating to get those credentials for that person.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. And I think we shouldn't discuss more of it, because I don't want to cross over any agenda lines. I just wasn't sure if we viewed those as stipends or not, that we're paying for that additional education. So I think you've clarified that. I'm going to just ask for an agenda topic later.
Absolutely. Thank you. And then Board Member Todd, your other comment about MAG, that's actually on our next slide. So I'm happy to entertain more conversation about the MAG program.
Okay,
as well.
sorry. Thank you.
I think if you want to move forward, we can.
Okay, no more questions? Okay, all right. So now we're going to talk about, I'm in control of this. Let me get further here. All right, so let's talk about MAG. As Board Member Todd just mentioned, there was a time that MAG was hard to fill based on data. In talking with the leaders, we may not be in that same present situation. We have been able to fill it successfully as far as it not being open, starting the year. So looking at that data. But with that said, we do realize that a MAG teacher does have some special services that they provide to our students that are gifted. So what we did is we compared it similar to what you guys have already approved for a special education teacher, which is a resource teacher. Because in essence, our MAG program is a pull-out program. I know back in the day, I heard that it was a self-contained program. And way before me, we moved to more of a pull-out program. So if you compare it to a special educator, a resource teacher, that's very similar model where the students get pulled out for reading, writing, math, but they get put, they're back in their gen ed classroom for science and social studies and they're champs. And so in kind of comparing the demands, because, special educators have IEPs, our MAG teachers have those plans with gifted students, we really felt that it was comparable, which that stipend is $3,000 that you guys approved prior to this meeting. But we decided to add an additional $1,500 because what we'd like to do is list in the duties of this teacher is not only are they getting the $3,000 for providing that special service to our gifted students, but also we'd like to capitalize on the gifted endorsement that they are working toward. The two that we do have are finishing up their gifted endorsement and have them assist us across the district as the experts. So provide professional development, help support the gifted coordinators on other campuses, and just overall build consistency of practices that your child doesn't have to be in the MAG program to get the benefit of our knowledge of our gifted educators. So this recommendation would be the past stipend amount was $9,000. This was originated with one teacher. When we grew to 2 teachers, it still stayed $9,000, so it was $18,000 for 3rd through 8th grade. Again, I will point out that's very similar to a resource teacher. Typically, resource teachers have multiple grade levels that they're pulling out, so multiple different lesson plans to plan for. And then what we recommend today is to call that role the MAG teacher and district gifted specialist. And then that would be a $4,500 stipend times 2, because we have 2 MAG teachers for a total of $9,000, which would save $9,000. Do you want to pause?
Madam President?
Could you repeat that? I don't think
Yeah,
we heard you.
I was asking for the floor for a second to ask some questions.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, I don't think I've ever heard until today the MAG program called a pull-out program. Those students' homeroom is those MAG teachers, and our core subjects, reading, writing, and arithmetic, which are basically what they're doing in their MAG class. They don't get, with their MAG, they don't get pulled out for one of those. They're in for the whole program, all of it. So I would respectfully disagree that this is a pull-out program. And in fact, honestly, I would like to see the science be brought back into it and make that more self-contained. That got watered down because of some hard to fill positions and some difficulties that we had there. But that by no stretch has ever been a pull-out program. Whereas sometimes in reading, we pull somebody out of their gen ed class into just for reading and they go back for everything else. And it should be noted that there has been very recent times where teachers in grade levels have told MAG students they're not allowed to go on field trips because they're MAG students and they're not part of the class. So I think that conversation, this is kind of a non-starter. Also, I would say that the MAG teachers are a little different still because they're teaching 2 or 3 grade levels. So it's 2 or 3 lesson plans that they're coming up with for math, for English, for whatever it is that they're doing. And they're teaching that simultaneously at the same time. So I think again, MAG is a very unique program, much like some of the students that we talked about earlier that for the next 30 days will be a part of Litchfield Elementary. Those are kind of the furthest extremes of education, and I think they're both very special students, but they do a lot of extra work in that MAG class if it's done right. If it's done right, and if the standards from Ms. Doozy's office hold and are increased, I don't know that you will accomplish this. And in the meantime, we're passing out to our current teachers that are there a pay cut, so to speak, which I don't think is the right message to send to them. Maybe if we're going to do this, we adopt this for the next teacher that comes in if somebody leaves, but we're throwing somebody a $4,500 pay cut, which I don't think is the right thing to do, especially this late.
Ms. Schmidt.
Go ahead.
Um, I am of a different opinion. I think this is much more comparable to what other teachers are receiving in our district. I think to give a teacher $9,000 is for teaching reading, writing, and math, which, in a combo class, our teachers are teaching all subjects dually at the same time, and they're not given any compensation. And so some resource teachers could have a band of 4 grade levels, up to 4 grade levels, probably. I'm not sure that there's one with 5, but certainly 4. And they are having to make lesson plans essentially for every single student on their caseload, which is 30 students, and they could be pulled out for reading, math, writing, all of those. And so to say that a MAG teacher should get more than them, I do not feel like is fair. I think the way that you explained it and how you came to this amount is reasonable. And I agree that it's later, right? But unfortunately, people that were acting in the superintendent role prior didn't, we couldn't, there was no explanation and the board couldn't move forward. And so, as we kind of stated when we did the stipends, I feel like the board was very clear that we only approved the stipends that we approved, and we were not promising anything for the future, right? And I don't want to I hear what Mr. Todd is saying, and it is an unfortunate. I think is there only one teacher that's staying? Like one teacher was hired recently. Is that correct?
Yes, there's one returning teacher and one new teacher, and both those teachers understood that you guys did not approve the $9,000 stipend. So, and not knowing if it would be to be approved. But I understand Board Member Todd's concern that if they are counting on that money, but they do know it wasn't approved and they don't have any anticipation for it to be approved. My other suggestion would just be, I understand the $9,000 when there was one teacher, 3rd through 8th, but now there is 2 teachers, 3rd through 8th. So instead of having a broader, like 5 grade levels, 6 grade levels in essence, these 2 teachers now are splitting that, and they do have a much lower caseload than a typical resource teacher. But it is the most comparable to what you've already approved as a board for stipends, which is why I compared it to a pullout. You could call it a push-in. I mean, you could call it other things, but it's definitely not a self-contained program, as maybe it was in the past, and maybe that is a direction we want to go as a district. I'm certainly open to the board recommending, what next steps we can do. But currently it is not a self-contained program. So it is most comparable to the resource teacher based on my assessment. So definitely understand, though, the points that Board Member Todd is making, but that is why we brought this as a recommendation based on that justification. Okay, so the next stipend that we reviewed, that would be something that we would need to begin the year, has to do with athletics. And so right now, the past title was Site Athletic Director. And it was, okay, so there's kind of 2 things that go on because it was approved that schools that have assistant principals would not have a stipend schedule. The assistant principals would take on that duty of site athletic director. But if you didn't have assistant principal, which is 3 schools in our district currently, we paid the site athletic director $900 per season for 4 seasons. Our recommendation today is to do what's called a site athletic supervisor, which still would be the assistant principal if the school had assistant principals. So they would monitor games, they would be there, for the games, handle anything that's on their site has to do with the games. It would be $475 per season for the schools without a full-time assistant principal, which is 3 schools. We would create what's called a district athletic and extracurricular director. That would be a $5,000 stipend, which brings the total to $10,700, which right now we spent $10,800. Our rationale for the district athletic director is this person would globally be responsible for scheduling all competitions, monitoring eligibility and physicals, managing participation fees across the 8 schools, managing the grade checks across the schools, supporting coaching recruitment, making sure all of our coaches are getting trained, making sure our coaches are cleared, like all those pieces, right, that we need someone to manage. And then also, in addition to athletics, overseeing our student clubs across the district would also be this person's responsibility. One of the rationale, too, that I'm bringing this recommendation to the board is in looking at how things are running for clubs, there's an opportunity here to really be more strategic with what clubs we're offering. Goes back to one of the priorities of the board is to offer those opportunities. So we could look at club opportunities across schools to make sure that we're offering a robust program for any student at any school. In addition, and I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus. This is just a current reality. We need to improve the way we're collecting fees. Because we don't have a systematic way across the district to have someone manage and do that work. And so that person would be responsible across the 8 schools to ensure that we have a systematic way. So it would be my recommendation that we still have the site athletic supervisor to be at the games, to supervise their own sports, but we would have this one district person to be that coordinator or that director to direct all of our sports and our clubs and ultimately be responsible to ensure that all of our 8 schools are having a similar experience. I will pause for any questions.
Ms. Schmidt.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, there's been a lot of conversation about athletics, and so I can really see the benefit of having a district kind of director. And I appreciate the way that you kind of organized it so that, the cost is similarly, and, you're really removing a lot from that site person. And so, their stipend is reflective of that. My question, I guess, kind of going back to job description versus job duties with a kind of a larger stipend amount, and it kind of being a district person. If you don't have a job description, how do you foresee selecting this person, and how would you go about that? Have you thought that far, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a job description could work for this role, just like a list of job duties. But you would post it. You can post with the list of job duties. But if the board would like a job description to be able to post it, we're happy to meet that requirement. It's just that none of our roles before had a stipend. I mean, not a job description. So that's on me. I should have probably asked that question before building all of this, but definitely I can see the benefit of doing that work. I think the work needs to be done regardless, definitely with the job duties. So that's how I would pick. And another thing about this role too is you could get someone that's really passionate about this work, right? It excites them, it motivates them, it things to their heart. And when you can get someone that's invested, it's not about the $5,000. It's really about them making a difference for our district, doing something that they love to do for kids. So.
Any other questions about this section? Okay.
So then the next page is just kind of a summary of everything that I've shared, just to kind of show you the financial impact. Again, trying to look for any opportunity that makes sense to still meet the priorities that have been set by the governing board, but also to help our bottom line, right? To use our resources more wisely. So you can see on this chart the difference in each coordinator position. I won't read everyone. I explained it in the other slides, but it's just a great visual to show you. I just want to remind you that even though the total cost savings, looks like it's 8,000. I just wanted to remind you that it's actually more because that EL coordinator stipends are not going to be out of M&O. They're going to be out of Title III. And I don't know why they weren't before. But all I can know now and the reality we live in right now that they can be, and we can still provide tutoring as well that we did last year that I'm hearing was very successful with our kiddos. So. Oops. I'm clicking here and I'm expecting my screen to change. Sorry. All right. So the next steps is admin cabinet will continue to review other stipends. We already have a meeting scheduled next week to pick up and start going through the other stipends. Recommendations will be brought back in August for the board to consider, discuss, and approve. Our team needs more time, honestly, to audit these stipends using the definition that we just shared with you tonight. And so these are just other examples that stipends that we need to review. The staff referral stipend, that is currently a stipend. And it doesn't actually meet any of the definitions of a stipend. So presents a unique consideration. Contract signing bonus stipend, again, tricky, right? It doesn't meet the definition of stipend. So is there another definition we need to add if that's something we continue? And it's always really good to have definitions of our common language because then we can be very clear when we're assessing any new stipends that we might want to offer for consideration to the board. Extra duty stipend with or without students. We stipend individuals for IEP writing, training, additional planning, grading. When I looked at the stipend list, it was kind of lots of different types of stipends. And bilingual related service stipend is another one that we need to review. Leadership at team and guiding coalition stipend. Right now it's a leadership stipend. Lead child study team stipend is another one. Special education lead stipend, nurse lead, speech lead. So as you can see, all of those things are important to review and make sure we bring our best recommendations forward. So with that, are there any other questions?
Madam President,
Yes, go ahead.
Ms. Deasy, thank you for your time on this. I like the direction you're headed with this. I have a couple questions. In the past, we've had some gifted leads on campus that have not been gifted certified or endorsed. I think that happens because honestly, in my mind, I think if a superintendent is bringing us somebody to approve to be the gifted lead, they're probably gifted. So I don't know sometimes if the question is even raised because you just expect somebody, if somebody's a lawyer, you expect they have a law degree. If somebody's a doctor, you expect that. So I think it's important that we look at that. But along those same lines, we've had the same issue with the MAG program where the teachers have not been fully certified and gifted. And so my question is, do we look at paying a half stipend because they are doing extra work, but they're kind of like a resident doctor versus a full, on your own doctor. So do we look at offering a half stipend for somebody who's not fully certified or endorsed for the position? Or do we look at giving them the full stipend with a schedule that says you need to have this completed within X amount of time? If you don't, you go to a half stipend or something of that nature. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to explain, does it make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're trying to blend two worlds, right? And the fact of the matter is finding people that are gifted certified is tricky, right? It isn't a certification that many people pursue. And so, which, we hope that would be more, but it's just matter of fact. That's the truth.
Doesn't that make that kind of a hard to fill position too, though, at that point?
Yeah, just like special education, right?
Right,
Special education too. So what I would actually think is the second thing that you mentioned, because that really mirrors even ADE's requirements. So like, let's say you have a teacher that is in a position that they're not highly qualified for. They can still fill that position, but you have to provide a plan of how
Right.
that teacher is going to achieve. And if they can't achieve it in that certain window, then they actually can't serve as that role anymore. That is only a certain amount of time. So I think something like that would be fair. I'm not sure. I would recommend the half stipend because I do think these folks will still have to participate in training and
Right.
commit the same amount of time. But you're not wrong in recognizing that we also want them to have that expertise.
Right.
But I think having them where they have a plan to achieve that certification or that endorsement would be acceptable to me. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think I said MAGA. It could be any one of these positions. I'm not, as I think everybody knows, I'm a huge supporter of the MAG program. My daughter, this district once upon a time started in second grade with the program. We've scaled it down to be not self-contained, and it's no longer offered to second graders. So we're going backwards instead of forwards with the program. But some of that is having highly qualified teachers running that program, true education professionals that know it. And I think we've struggled with that for a long time because of the pay. But on the same token, we've paid some folks to do the job, and I think we just lost one who's has moved on to go into a general ed class or whatever. So that's why I brought up the stipend issue and the halftime type of thing worked. But I'll trust your judgment on it. And it was just a question.
Thank you.
Any other questions, or do we have a motion?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve the SY 2026-27 stipends as presented on agenda item 8.4.
I'll second.
All right, thank you.
I apologize. I wanted to make it specific because the recommended motion is for, it looks like all stipends, but I wanted to make sure it was limited to this agenda item.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We can take a vote. Mr. Todd,
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon,
Aye.
Ms. Zimmerman.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. Will show that passed 4-0. And we're going to take a 5-minute recess at 8:33. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thanks. resuming the meeting at 8:40 p.m. We are on agenda item 8.5. Discussion approval of employee work calendars for SY 26-27. Administration has requested this item to be tabled until next week. It requires a little more work and a little cleaning up. So that was the request from administration. So if we could get a motion for that, please.
I make a motion to table 8.5.
I'll second. All right, we have a motion to table 8.5 with a second. We can take a vote. Mr. Todd,
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon,
Aye.
Ms. Zimmerman.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. Will show that passed 4-0. We can move to 8.6. To consider, discuss, amend if desired, and if deemed advisable, to adopt a resolution approving the governing board's argument in support of the special maintenance and operation budget override election. Okay, I will open it up for discussion
Actually, just had a question first.
or questions too.
I just want to make sure that I understand this agenda item 8.6 because it talks about like that we're approving that there was an appropriate meeting, and then the second one is this resolution of a pro statement, but it's blank and we're not approving the pro statement till the next agenda item. So should they have been reversed? Because if I approve 8.6, it's blank, like the pro statement. Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
I'm going to have to lean on my colleagues here. Is it maybe perhaps if written in a way that, and maybe Minnie, you can help as well, was it written in a way that the board could decide to take action tonight if they wanted to? I'm not sure, because my understanding was that tonight was a discussion over the pro statement.
Okay.
Here, Kevin
Yep.
might have more information. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, it looks like if I'm reading this correctly, that 8.6 is to adopt the resolution. 8.7 is then going to be to discuss and consider the pro bond statement. We're not actually approving the pro statement tonight. I don't think that the file attachment for the pro statement is really necessary with 8.6, if that makes sense.
That's correct. Yes, your interpretation of this is correct.
Okay. So all we are approving in 8.6 potentially, we're discussing and potentially approving is, excuse me, is the resolution to have the override. And then the next agenda item will be talking about the pro bond statement, but we're not actually approving it at any point this evening. This is just a discussion of it tonight.
Correct. So you have a draft of a pro statement that you can adopt, that you can discuss tonight, ask for changes, and then that can be adopted at the next meeting because you have one next week.
Okay, but under I'm on the resolution one, and it says section 1 approval. The board hereby approves the argument for the election attached hereto as Exhibit A. But Exhibit A is blank.
Yes, when we got this from the attorney, my understanding is exactly what President Schmidt said. It was supposed to be an action saying, hey, we've called for the election, we're certifying that, and by the way, we're going to give you a pro statement at the end of this. But I understand how you're reading that, and I'm actually leaning that way.
Mhm.
Given the board needs to have a pro statement that is a requirement of this, and then certify that they agree that this is what they're going to do. So, I would say let's go ahead and if we could even flip these into discussion and talk about the board pro statement first. I don't know how you've adopted this agenda and if we can do that.
I just wonder, would it be beneficial for us to not take action on 8.6 either tonight so that we can talk about the pro statement in 8.7 and then put that as part of the resolution when it comes back for approval?
I don't think there would be a problem with that.
And there's nothing requiring us to take action for 8.6. It's set up,
Madam President,
yes.
we could easily table 8.6 until such time that we listen to 8.7, or as the board president, we took a motion to suspend rules. You could call 8.7, you could pause 8.6, you could call 8.7, we could talk about it and come back to 8.6.
Thank you. That sounds like a reasonable option to me. We can pause 8.6. We will move on to 8.7, discussion consideration for bond pro statement. Mr. Haggerty is already at the microphone and ready to go. And so we will move to that. Thank you.
Okay, Madam President, members of the board, you have in front of you a proposed argument for the election. It'd be the board's pro statement. And this was drafted by me based on prior pro statements that I'd seen in the district and things that looked like they were important. And I also placed items in here that I think would be really important as part of how this this whole thing is framed, because we don't do overrides for any other reason other than to improve what we're doing for our kids. And that's what this is reflecting. We look at home values also. It's for our community.
Okay, thank you. We'll open it up for questions and discussion.
Ms. Schmidt.
Yes, please go ahead.
I just want to clarify that it would be a pro override statement, not bond.
Did I say bond?
It's
If I
listed
did, my apologies. It is,
as-
you
yeah.
are correct.
Okay. So I have some thoughts. I thought about, trying to kind of reword it, and I thought might be better just to kind of share some of my ideas, and then I'll leave it to people that are more experienced to kind of wordsmith it. So it says kind of in the middle, with our community-based values, we're committed to continue working with parents to teach students citizenship, leadership, and good American principles. I think somewhere in there we need to talk about academics. Like, I feel like all of those things are important, but as a district, the most important thing we do is provide, an education on the academics. And so when I read that, it just feels like, what else are we doing? So I would really prefer to see something added in there, specifically about, strong academics or something like that.
May I interrupt you?
Yeah.
Believe it or not, that's actually one I took out of one of the prior Liberty
I know.
pamphlets.
I went back and read the previous pro
So-
statements myself before
So you didn't like it then either, I guess.
I didn't, but I wasn't on the board then. I wrote my own pro statement as the board fact chair.
Okay. Let me, would there, to go toward the end, would it be framing it in terms of our program schools that are we offer specialized program schools, things like that? Would that kind of fit the framework you're looking for? Because we give give families options for our schools. We have basically open enrollment anyway, so they can select schools that have specialized programs that fit their students' needs. Would that, framing it in that way, would that kind of get you there?
Some kind of. I had a word I added something, and again, like I didn't really wordsmith. I thought about it and I just like couldn't pull it all together, but provide like a well-rounded education, because I think such a critical part of the override is that it pays for specials, music, art, PE. And so I think that I have that added to the bullet points because I personally think that that means a lot to people. And so, but I also don't want our voters to think like we're just using it for extra, right? And so I think putting an emphasis, the part of attract and retain quality teachers, we want to do that so that we can provide a robust education for our students. And so that's where I'm trying to pull like, that we're providing strong academics, I guess.
And also, this is not more money. This is keeping
N-
where we are, and
Right.
and so that's why I was trying to frame it in a way where we're not showing we're adding, but keeping higher standards already.
Right.
So
And I saw that. I did like that line. I feel like that you added simply continues the existing support Liberty relies on to maintain high educational standards.
yes,
It's just that, like that next line, it just feels like we're missing the part about academics. And that's just I'm just offering my opinion, one board member. That's how I read it. Um, I, um, I would, I would delete this again. I'm just offering my suggestions. Hopefully other board members, will offer theirs. I would just delete the next sentence, or I would say something, our district does an excellent job of keeping up with growth, um, with a majority of our budget, um, you know, directly impacting students, or something that, a majority of our money is going to the classroom. Um, or, and then, another idea I had was that somewhere, I know I'm giving you a lot of different ideas. I'm not putting it exactly in a specific place, but like all of our override money is going directly into the classroom or to teachers. So, we're not using this. I know it's not additional money, but it's over what the state gives us, right? We're not using it on any administration costs or things like that.
um, I'm thinking in terms of because it is not additional money, talking about how it's focused on those things as opposed to adding to it.
Yeah.
Is that kind of where you're going?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so then again, I had just adding in those bullet points something about funding specials, and spelling it out, art, music, and PE. Just because I do, having, worked the override myself personally and like knocked on doors, I do think that people value that and think that, it's important for students to have kind of like a well-rounded education, which is where I kind of got that idea from. But I think it's important to spell it out. And just another idea, like again, I'm not sure how it would fit all in here, but that, we have kept our promises that we made to the voters 4 years ago with how we said we were going to spend the override money. We did that. We've kept our class sizes at 27. We've had music, art, PE. We've had full day kindergarten, all of those things. So,
Okay. Well, we bought a few. We get a 200-word limit, so we
I
have
know.
a little sharper. And we did buy some words by if we kill that one sentence. If we have people that are in agreement with that, and then we can craft something around those other thoughts. So,
Those are just like my.
so other board members' input.
May I make a suggestion? Sorry, Madam President, may I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we talking here about keeping up with growth, and then your bullet point, it says, again, keep up with growth. It's not a lot, but it would buy you 4 words to help Ms. Zimmerman's point come in. I didn't count her words exactly, but I gave her 4. I think we're going to continue to keep up with growth. So maybe we look at those bullet points we have to have them, but can we clean those up a little bit and grab some words there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
And-
we're-
And then you could say like by voting yes instead of by voting in favor. You buy a word, which when you're talking 200 words, every word is, scales of economy here. That might be 2 or 3 words. So maybe we do some of that type of cleaning up.
And Mr. Todd, thank you. I would be okay with removing keep up with growth because, I think, again, I'm just speaking from my past experience and what the override, what we promised the voters, keep up with growth wasn't one of those things, right? Attract and retain quality teachers and staff, maintain low class sizes, fund specials. I think the protect our home values and quality of life, I think protect the home values helps people who don't necessarily have children in the school.
Mhm.
So I think that part is probably still important, but I appreciate that, Mr. Todd.
I had
Yeah,
a
could we
thought.
cut out and quality of life though? Protect our home values.
Yeah.
And then I don't know how we necessarily
Yeah.
protect quality of life. The other one is a little bit lower, by voting in favor. If we said by voting yes, we gain a word, we ensure that local tax dollars stay local. What if we just say that tax dollars stay local? Buys us another word.
Mhm. I had a thought as well. I was kind of going back to in the paragraph, trying to think of ways to say well-rounded education, So we have this override will not raise taxes. It simply continues the existing support Liberty relies on to maintain high educational standards. And then with our community-based values, that sentence. What if we say this override will not raise taxes? It simply continues the existing support Liberty relies on to provide a high quality, well-rounded education to the students of our district. And that saves us a whole bunch of words because we actually kind of take out that whole second sentence about citizenship, leadership, and principles and just call it a well-rounded, high quality, well-rounded education. I wrote this down too, so I can send it to you. But so that was just a way to sort of combine those ideas and save ourselves some words in there, which would then open up to be able to expand somewhere else. Again, I'm just jotting this down right now as we're talking, so I'm sure it can be cleaned up even more, but that was just one thing I thought. I do agree with Mr. Todd. Like, I don't think we need to say local twice. When you only have a few words, you learn how to get real good at only saying the ones that absolutely have to be used. So that would be one place. I agree to yes, by voting yes instead of in favor, kind of some of those other things. At the end, when you vote, you can vote yes to support our students, staff, and community. You don't have to have our in front of all of them. Again, it saves a couple of words and just cleaning up some of the language. And I do also agree that we absolutely have to put in here that this helps keep specials because I do think that that's really important to a lot of parents. And so I think it needs to be spelled out. I think it should be a bullet point because it is such an important piece, the art, music, gym stuff. So those are my thoughts.
Madam President,
Yes, go ahead.
in that last paragraph, by voting in favor, we ensure, it says giving our students a safe, high quality education they need to thrive. Maybe we could remove they need to thrive. We're giving them and is there a word that would suffice for high quality that would turn that into one word instead of 2? I suppose we could just say a quality education. I don't know if there's
Exceptional,
really a difference
an
between quality and high
exceptional
quality,
education.
but
What do
What's
you
that?
think? I said, what about an exceptional education?
sure. I mean, something there, and then I don't know that we need that they need to thrive because
I can
that's-
agree with that.
And secondly, that's kind of a preposition at the end of a sentence, which might not be so great. So, yeah.
Now, I will craft what I can from what I'm hearing tomorrow because I'm actually going to be out of town for the 2 weeks after that. I will not be here next week. So
Okay.
I'll draft something and Dr. Doozy will and Minnie and Anita will help wordsmith it to get you the final product.
Okay.
So I'll draft
So-
something tomorrow.
In given time, should we not, I mean, we've got a lot of these drafts. Could we just do this really quick? So we've got it. And,
Minnie, would you?
and I think there's enough stuff, but I'd like to move on it.
I can probably type it too.
I'd really like to see it written out, like, and have time to process. I think this is a really important, piece that goes out to our community. I was actually going to ask after you draft it, if it could be sent to the board right away so that we, could look it over
Yeah,
and
this actually isn't on the agenda as an action item tonight. It's a discussion consideration. So we can't vote on it anyways this evening.
Sorry.
I kind of forgot about that too. So no worries on that, but we can't vote on it. So we'll wordsmith it. We'll get it cleaned up. Maybe we can have it sent to all board members to review again
Absolutely.
ahead of time so that if there are any more adjustments that need to be done, all of that can be done before we meet again next Tuesday, if that seems reasonable. Yeah, so I think we made some good statements here. We can clean this up, wordsmith it a little bit, shine it, and then bring it back next week when we meet for approval. All right. Now we will go back to 8.6, which is to consider, discuss, amend if desired, and if deemed advisable, adopt a resolution approving the governing board's argument in support of the special maintenance and operation budget override election.
If we are in agreement, I would prefer to table this
Mhm.
until we can put the actual pro statement as part
Mhm.
of the resolution.
Mhm.
I think it's cleaner personally.
Yep.
I think we can do it here. I mean, I think we should vote out. We've got this. So I would make a motion to adopt a resolution that's approving governing board's argument in support of the special maintenance and operations budget override election. And I'll explain my motion here that now gives the district authority to move forward with crafting everything and making the changes.
All right, we have a motion. Oh, Ms. Camerata needs clarification, I believe.
President Schmidt, I have Member Todd motion to adopt the resolution and to give administration the authority.
No, it's the exact motion that's there. Motion to adopt a resolution approving the governing board's argument in support of a special maintenance and operations budget override election.
Okay, President Schmidt, and so the motion will read, motion to adopt then a resolution approving the governing board's argument in support of the special maintenance and operation budget override election. Correct?
That is correct.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We can take a vote. Mr. Todd?
I'm a no, and I'll explain.
Mr. Kenyon?
I'm also a no, and I'll explain.
Ms. Zimmerman?
I'm also a no, and I'd like to explain my vote.
And I am also a no, so we will show that that did not pass 0-4. And we'll just go down the line. Mr. Todd, would you like to explain?
I will. When the board voted on this agenda item to pass an override, I had to leave under emergency. There was a 3-person board present at that time. It passed 2-1. I asked for a reconsideration of this, and it never came to be. Had leadership of this board honored the request for the reconsideration, because it was very important that we had a 5-person vote on this, we wouldn't be in this shape today. But unfortunately, I can't support this override, and I'm not going to support anything that has to do with it.
All right, Mr. Kenyon.
Hey, Madam President, yeah, I had an unfortunate situation where I wasn't able to be at that meeting, when we discussed the override. And so I wasn't able to vote on it. And so that is why right now I can't support the override, resolution we have before us without going back and discussing the override itself.
Ms. Zimmerman.
I voted no because the way that I read it is that we're approving the argument and we have not finalized the argument. And so I'm not comfortable approving something that we haven't finalized yet.
All right. Thank you. We can move on to 9.1, board comments or agenda topic requests. Any requests for future agenda items? Okay. Then we can go to 10.1, upcoming board meetings. We have a special board meeting next week, Tuesday, July 21st.
Madam President, sorry, the mute button was on again. Relating to the last topic, the motion failed, but that does not mean another board member cannot make another motion that could be considered.
Okay, well, would you like to make another motion?
I would like a minute to think about if there's a way we can come to something that would work. Yes. Under our last motion, it was to approve that we move forward. So is there some discussion from the board that we could come to a consensus to move this forward somehow?
Do you have any ideas?
Well, I mean, ultimately the motion failed, so it's done. It doesn't, it really can't come back. So I guess we just leave it as that.
Okay. Then we move to agenda item 9.1. I asked if there were any comments for topic requests. I didn't get a response.
Sorry, I'm fighting with the mute button here a little bit. I have a couple. Hang on one second. Let me get to my paper. Yes. I would like the board to quickly come up with some legal counsel and craft a policy to address conflicts and how the board wishes those to be managed by the district. I would also like to ask for a quick policy to address our investment in teachers and the return on that investment. For example, as we spoke about earlier, if we pay for a teacher to become gifted certified or teaching a MAG program, we're paying for that. We should get a return on investment of that. So I think we should look at some sort of a agreement to structure that. I would also like to ask that the board create a policy to discuss consultants and board approval on the hiring of any consultant for the district. I think Ms. Zimmerman had a point earlier. The problem is a lot of these consultants are hired for an amount and there becomes a problem when it goes over a number and we don't even know about it. And that would be the end of my request for tonight.
All right, thank you. Any other requests? Great. Moving on to 10.1, upcoming board meetings. We have a special board meeting next Tuesday, July 21st. Then on Tuesday, August 11th, we have a special board meeting and a regular board meeting. Tuesday, August 18th, a possible special board meeting. And then Tuesday, September 25th is a special board meeting and regular board meeting. Also, oh no, sorry, August 18th is not possibly a special board meeting. I forgot what that was for. That is our phase 5 with McPherson and Jacobson on August 18th. That is what that Tuesday is about. And with that, we can adjourn the meeting at 9:11.